across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this is the Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and let's just be clear on something. There's no chance whatsoever of sex offenders being castrated. I'm convinced that the reason that this has been put into the media today is to give a great opportunity for left-wing lawyers in North London to have a big battle over the human rights of sex offenders. Everybody makes a couple of million. Everybody does incredibly well. I'll tell you the reason why I believe that's definitely true. Because look, once again, at the situation with the Chagos Islands, we know that giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, a country that has never, ever ruled it, and where I own a small sugar plantation, by the way.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
I hope you're being compensated.
Yeah, I do. OK, sugar plantation.
Is that your old family one from slavery times?
It is indeed, yeah.
Oh, is it? I shouldn't have said anything.
Yes, in fact it is.
Oh.
Yes. Let's not dwell on that. Right.
Don't call that.
Let's not dwell on that. But Mauritius has never ruled the Chagos Islands as an independent country. It is in hock to China. But of course, even though we know that giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius will take us a step closer to the invasion of Taiwan and the Third World War that we're so worried about, we're going to do it anyway because international law says we should, a non-binding international ruling. And by the way, as we all know, international law was invented in 1975 in the Inns of Court. Right, doesn't exist. It just exists as a body of treaties. There's no international parliament. The UN is not the international parliament. There's no international president, much as the UN Secretary General would like to think he was. There's no international law. There are no proper international courts. Forget all that. There's just independent arbitration on individual treaties. But anyway, there we have it. The war is getting closer and we're not even going to be able to castrate a paedophile to celebrate. Jess Gill is here. She's from the Women's Safety Initiative. Jess, look, are you more positive than me?
No, I don't think you can be positive about this. Well, you can be positive in the fact that at least we're having the conversation that people who commit awful atrocities to children should have some kind of punishment. You know, there's this argument that, oh, they're people too, you need to understand their side of the story, but I'm sorry.
But these medication is only the puberty blockers that we give to children anyway who are going to be trans.
Yeah, and apparently it doesn't get rid of the urges as well for some of these people.
Yeah, I don't think it goes far enough. Even if it didn't go, it doesn't go far enough. I think once you have that mentality, you're set with it for the rest of your life.
So let's just quote you, which says, even if it did go far enough, it still wouldn't go far enough.
It wouldn't go far enough.
Right, OK.
I'm sorry, but these people deserve the worst. Like,
well, I think they've got a brilliant idea in California. What they do is they just turn around and say, right, after you finish your sentence, you are their equivalent of sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and they just put you into a secure hospital for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Easy.
Because you can't get rid of your sexual proclivity.
Indeed. But let me ask you, because you've been out and about trying to support women in who've been abused as children and whatever. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing.
Yeah, so our focus isn't just on paedophilia in general. It's about the biggest issue, I would say, facing the UK, and something that these groups, these human rights groups, won't touch, which is about how mass immigration is impacting women. The amount of stories that we've received. I mean, the people who have been imprisoned in terms of who have been persecuted for, paedophilia, for raping. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And in fact, a lot of these cases have been neglected, have been, the authorities have turned the other way because there is a racial element, because a lot of these people come from countries which disrespect women, which, have a country, have a culture that just has no regard for women, treats them as animals.
But how dare we complain when we say to people, look, the culture of the country you come from is superior to Britain. You should not learn anything about British culture. You should not learn anything about British customs. You should not learn anything about the English language. If you do any of those, if anyone insists on you doing those things, they're a racist. Therefore, if what you do is disrespect women, if what you do is rape young girls in the country you come from, then why would you have changed Why would you change when you come to Britain in those circumstances?
Especially when it's enabled and, it's the diversity being our strength. We've got to sacrifice these working class girls, hundreds of thousands of them, in the name of diversity, and anyone should shut up who wants to mention it, and it's a dog whistle, as that minister said.
Or of course, what Sadiq Khan said, it's not happening at all,
Yeah.
which is a remarkable thing, given there have been convictions in Stratford, in London. I mean, I've no doubt the Metropolitan Police are brilliant at covering up these sorts of attacks in a way that the Manchester Police, I think, are getting better at covering up for these communities, as we say, what David Starkey calls tribal areas, areas effectively.
It's used as a punishment rape as well. If one tribe affects another one in certain parts of that country, Pakistan, it's used as a weapon. It's settled a score. If you rape someone from their clan, it settles scores and things like that. It's a different culture, obviously.
I think there is definitely, the way these gangs, these people are acting, it is racist. It's racist towards white people. I mean, I was just speaking to a woman who was a victim of sexual harassment today, and she said 10 years ago she was walking down the street in Birmingham, and this group of Pakistani young men, they're in the car going past, and they called her a white SLAG.
No, I think we can say slag if that's what they said.
Yeah.
I mean, we might as well. I mean, given she's been shouted in the streets.
Yeah, and she shouted something back. They waited, and she said they stood at a kebab shop, waited for her to go past, grabbed her, pushed her up, and said, "Don't you dare say that," and threatened her, intimidated her. And they said, "How old are you?" And then when she said she's 18, they're like, "Oh, she's too old." They said to her, and this has been happening for decades, and the authorities have looked the other way because.
But we're getting very good at covering it up now, aren't we? Very good at covering it up. At the end of the day, whichever way you look at it, we've got Tommy Robinson in prison. We've got all of these quote unquote far right figures pushed out the way, pushed to the margins. They're the people that exposed all of it. And I mean, I've said that I have a simple solution, and I'd love you to talk to me about the solution. 0344 499 1000. I think it's simple. If you are a police officer or a social worker and you are part of a grooming gang, and my definition of part of a grooming gang are the people that cover up for them. Look, Sir Peter Farhay, the former Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, was in a grooming gang as far as I'm concerned. Sadiq Khan is in a grooming gang as far as I'm concerned. Not because they've ever abused a child, but because they have covered up for that grooming gang. Look, if I drive you now to the Bradford and Bingley for you to rob it with a sawn-off shotgun, I'm considered part of the gang.
Joint enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Exactly right.
Enterprise.
If I'm a police officer and I tell you about the security features of the Bradford and Bingley, it's considered joint enterprise, the right phrase. Therefore, I believe that these police officers and these politicians are members of the grooming gang through joint enterprise. But my point is this, very simple. We bring in a crime, you let them away with it, all you like. But any police officer or any social worker convicted of helping these people, death penalty.
Yeah.
Now, when you start stringing up the Chief Constable of South Yorkshire, when you hang him for grooming, that's when it will focus minds. You just say, look, if you want as Rochdale Council, you support that tribal area in abusing white children, and 15 of you will see the death penalty for it. That's when we'll see action.
I think that's necessary. And honestly, these people, they're evil. I don't get how you could look the other way when young girls are going to you and being like, look, I'm being raped, I'm being groomed, I'm being tied to radiators. The stories of these young girls. Charlene Downs, she was murdered. There are so many cases where these young girls...
Charlene Downs, once again, the story that we do not tell online on this show because it's so obscene, but it's related to owning a kebab shop and being unable to find the body.
Yeah.
I think is the best way we can put it.
And the court case fell apart because of technicality. And
Yes.
Just went
I think if you were to dredge the pond of humanity and find the worst thing possible, then I think a kebab shop owner accusing of losing the body in the way he was accused of losing the body is so obscene. It just.
But that's the one we know a little bit about. There's probably some that we don't know anything
There are
about.
so many cases. There are so many names of these girls who have been raped, who have been groomed, who have been killed, who have been drugged so much that they've overdosed that we don't even know the names of. Every person in this country can name the name George Floyd. How many people can name the name Charlene Downs?
Very few. Very few.
And it would be millions of rapes because, you know, it's about 250,000 girls. And some of those girls quite regularly were raped hundreds of times. So you're talking of millions and millions and millions of rapes if you do the math. So, I mean, it's the biggest crime in this country's history.
Yeah, MPs are happy to call it a dog whistle and dismiss it.
Well, we've got the Mayor of London, admittedly he's a scumbag, who says that grooming gangs do not exist. Right? He's literally said they do not exist. Now, nobody believes, and I include Sadiq Khan in this, nobody believes grooming gangs don't exist. And once again, I repeat, I believe Sadiq Khan knows they exist and deliberately tries to hide them because the price is a few white trash for the sake of multicultural society is worth the bother.
He thinks he can get away with it, and that's what we're trying to do at the Women's Safety.
Getting away with it.
Well, that's what we're trying to do at the Women's Safety Initiative. We want to hold these people to account because, you know, I think they should be cancelled. If cancel culture is going to be used for anything, it should be used to cancel politicians who are happy to deny and look the other way when young girls are getting groomed and raped.
I mean, there was the one at City Hall, the Reform person who said, you know, we should all forget our parties and work together and look into these gangs. And he said he forgot about all the importance of the actual crime, and he said, I would never work with Reform on anything. You know, forget all the rapes were going that he denies go on.
It's horrendous, and it's even taken place. But what's your assessment of well, just bluntly what I was talking about before, police and social workers? I say they're getting better at covering up this crime rather than the crime reducing. Am I wrong to say that?
Well, they've had plenty of years of experience covering it up, haven't they? You know, the grooming gangs, they've been happening for so long. These issues have been happening for so long. And honestly, if anything happened to me, I don't know if I'd go to the police or social services. Like, what could they do about it realistically?
Well, social services...
They'd probably turn it back on me.
Yeah, did you hear about that occasion when a girl managed to escape, got in a taxi, and they said, well, we're not going to pay the taxi first. They phoned up the gang that had kidnapped her to pay for the taxi firm and take her back.
And there was the father that went round the house and the police arrested him, and they carried on raping his daughter over that night. So that word, you know, they're definitely accessories of that crime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very, very simple proposition. You pass a law that enables you to give the death penalty to police and social workers who, by the way, people keep going on about the fact I'm obsessed with death penalty. Let me tell you, I think we would never have to execute people. We wouldn't. I'll tell you something. Now, okay, am I bothered about death penalty for murderers and things like that? No, what I think you do is you have effectively a dynamic punishment system. So what you do is you say, look, really simple, female genital mutilation, 50 years in prison, no parole. Right? Nobody will do it then. Right? All of these, I'll get away with it if I can things. I accept that somebody who is a paedophile is habitual. I accept that most murders wouldn't be stopped by the death penalty necessarily. But I think there are a lot of crimes you can eradicate just by the threat.
It went up a lot, murder, when they got rid of the death penalty. It's a myth that it doesn't. So it does stop people murdering.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Mind you told me the other day, Asher told me the other day, that when they got rid of the death penalty, they said, life will mean life. Don't you worry.
Yeah, they did.
Life is about 6 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable. OK, we're going to stick with Jess Gill, and we're going to be talking about Lucy Connolly, whether she should be freed. By the way, she said that she suggested burning down a migrant hotel. Had she raped a child in Burnley, she would have got a lower sentence. Yeah. More next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. Let's go straight to Stan in Burnley. Stan, you're on Talk.
Hello, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good, doing all right. I'm doing all right. Are you a believer that this chemical castration will be rolled out, or is it just another opportunity for the lawyers to make a couple of quid suing the government?
That's never going to happen. It's never ever going to happen. I mean, you know, never mind chemical castration. People who fiddle with kids and rape women and that, they should just be physically castrated in my eyes. End of.
I just wonder whether they shouldn't just be kept in prison, or in the California thing, where you keep them in a mental institute for their entire life, just because it's not their fault they're a nutter. And you just say, well, there you go, you're in this secure unit.
But some can control their urges. You get people who I've heard speaking who say, yes, I am, but I've never acted on it.
Yeah, but it's not illegal to be a paedophile. It's illegal to be a child molester. Yeah. Which is an important difference.
Yeah.
Well, again, like I say, for me, it's not going to happen. It's just whiffle waffle. It's just nonsense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you think it'll ever happen, Jess, or do you think it'll be European human rights?
Yeah, I'll
court?
believe it when I see it. I think everything is just so entrenched in human rights that I think, we have so much sympathy towards these people, and I genuinely don't think they deserve it. I mean, how could you argue that they deserve it? But we have this idea that anyone who commits any crime is only doing it because of the environment that they're in.
The victim.
They're the victim.
And this is why we end up in the mess we're in.
But Jess, we end up in this ludicrous situation where we go, if it wasn't for giving rights to these bad people, you wouldn't have your rights as well. Under the coronavirus, I was placed under house arrest, as were you, as was Asher, as was everybody watching and listening to this programme. Businesses were shut down and destroyed. Children's education was ruined. I was forced to wear a face nappy against medical advice.
And the economy's ruined?
Just because Whitty and Valance thought that was a good idea, right? It's all garbage. Where were my human rights then? Why couldn't I go to court then and say, well, hey, hang on, you let a paedophile out early, why can't you let me out? None that happened.
What about the human rights of the victims as well?
Not interested.
Not interested. Again, I just feel like over the past few decades we have seen this push to defend people who really don't deserve defending, in terms of criminals, in terms of paedophiles. And I think, honestly, we need to put victims first.
£250,000 to decide whether Levi Belfield should be allowed to get married in prison.
And it's the same,
he took a hammer to a family, killed Millie Dowler, right? I mean, do we want him to have a wedding? I mean, you just think, get out of it.
And our homeless, they don't get any help. But any homeless person from around the world can come here and they get put in a hotel. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, the homeless of Pakistan get looked after, but the homeless of London do not get looked after. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. It's crazy. It's this idea that everybody is equal. Everybody, everybody deserves a chance. Well, some people don't deserve a chance. I was watching that ludicrous programme about as we get our drinks out.
Thank you, Garson.
I was watching that ludicrous programme about Arthur Knight. You know, that bloody nutter from America.
Isn't that an estate agent?
No. That Arthur Knight, the guy who was actually just a rapist from America. They had his fingerprint, his DNA. All he did, he had his tattoos removed, and he's going like Darth Vader.
Wasn't he in Scotland? They found him in Scotland, didn't they? Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, Bex in Essex, she's called in. What do you want to say, Bex?
Hi, Andreas and Jess. I just wanted to say that I think that the paedophiles and the rapists should be castrated physically without anaesthetic.
Oh, you old softy.
But I think that all men should be given low doses of that medication, because I think if testosterone was down, there'd be less violence and less rapes.
Yeah, but hang on a second. This is exactly the same as putting, one in 5 children, boys in America, on Ritalin for being too boisterous. I mean, are you just basically one of these crazed lefty activists who believes that all men are evil?
Mind you, then we could have the Olympics with just one sex.
I'm a far right thug. Okay, I'm not a lefty.
Yeah.
No, but I just think that like obviously the problem with raping, obviously, is mostly it's done by men. And obviously men's aggression is a big problem. You can't deny it. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying all men, but it's a massive problem in society.
Well, if you were to talk to Jordan Peterson, what he says is that the underlying threat of violence when men are together avoids bitchiness. Because if you can't thump someone for being nasty, then you'll end up being very bitchy. And I'd rather have that underlying threat of violence than bitchiness.
Really?
It's preferable.
Yep.
I think women would definitely prefer to have bitchiness from men.
That's what Jordan Peterson said. He says that women do, a personality destruction. You know, that your reputation, destroy your reputation, whereas men give you a fat lip. That's his general.
Women are far more calculated when it comes to revenge and coming.
The only thing I used to hate when I worked in politics with women is they'd start a battle with you, and then if you won, the tears would come out. Oh, he's a bastard! Oh, what he's done to me! Oh, what he's done!
But Thatcher, you see, that's where Thatcher, she wouldn't do that.
Listen, love, you started it, right? It's just I'm better at being nasty.
Jess, what do you think about our disgraceful views on women then?
I mean, I think we need more masculine men. I think they don't have enough testosterone, especially considering all the microplastics and all the soy in the food.
Turning
and
the
everything.
fish female.
I'll say this as well. I think when you think about men and violence, I think it's Nina Power who described masculinity as the masculine urge the rage to protect the violence underlying that. And I think that's needed. If you think about the rising sexual violence, the rising sexual crime, I think it's because a lot of men nowadays, whether it's because of the Me Too movement, whether it's because of social stigma, they're also afraid to defend women. They're also afraid to show positive forms of masculinity.
If I live in a green zone, which in fact I do, where the police have given up policing, right? What is the moral problem with me going and just personally administering justice to the local sex offender, right? And the reason I say that is because there are zones in the country where certain crimes are completely ignored. In a green zone, it would be street crime. In a tribal area, it would be sex crime. But where is the social contract in all of this? This idea that we give away our rights in exchange for certain protections. Now we give away our rights in exchange for no protections, and actually, in some cases, a malevolent police force.
Well, like we were talking about before, that case where that dad tried to defend his daughter from a grooming gang and the police had a go at him. They locked him up. And
she carried on being raped at the same time.
Yeah.
And what about that guy who molested his own children and couldn't be deported back to Pakistan because of his right to family life, namely seeing the children?
And he'd have got problems in Pakistan for being a paedophile.
As he should do. Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, let's be clear. When you get caught in an Islamic country for a sex crime, they don't have a laugh with you. They do not have a laugh with you. You do not want to molest a child in Dubai. In Britain, you'll be fine. In Dubai, you've got real problems. Real problems. OK, Robert in Hertfordshire. Robert, you're on talk.
Good evening, chaps. I get annoyed every time the phrase grooming gangs is used. Look, call it what it is. Pakistani nonce gangs. They're nonces. It should be, every time you say that word, it should make you flinch.
Well, they're rape and torture gangs because they raped them and tortured them in a sadistic kind of way.
I think the reason we call them grooming gangs is firstly because before the watershed, it doesn't upset the children, though they're fairly upset already. But also, it's the way that it's an attempt to explain how this is much more orchestrated. I mean, these guys don't just jump out of a bush like Aki, the famous guy in Liverpool. They literally stalk, harass, and embed themselves within these groups of girls.
No, I disagree with you. I'll tell you for why. If you've got 10 men who have just raped a girl, that's probably one of them has groomed that girl to becoming their girlfriend. That's how it happens.
Okay.
Then they invite them to a party, then they get raped by 10.
They give them drink and drugs, and then yeah.
No, they're nonces. They are nonces. I'm sorry to be, but that's what you call them. I'm not swearing.
No, I didn't say you were. I didn't say you were swearing.
But it's almost woke. The term is almost woke. grooming gangs. It's too comfortable.
I think the term grooming is also necessary. So over the past few weeks, I've been speaking of victims and the family of victims of grooming gangs, and I think in terms of the help they receive, it's a lot different to just a victim of domestic or sexual violence, because there is that grooming aspect. It's like they've been in a cult. When a girl has been groomed by these men, there's nothing like. There have been cases where I've spoken to the dad of a grooming gang, who was also, he's Marlon in the recent Channel 4 documentary. I spoke to him, and he was like, there was nothing I could do, other than physically, I guess he could have, but nothing he could have said to stop her from doing that. They are groomed, they are hypnotized into this, and then they get in this awful situation where they think they're at blame. And so you have to, if you're analysing this from a therapy perspective, if you want to get them help, you can't just treat it like any other sexual crime. Even the most severe sexual crimes, there is that aspect of grooming which needs to be listened to.
But I thought back to my time, my very brief time at I won't say which council, but at one of the council's children's services department. I was the press officer. Don't worry, I would have been awful as a social worker. But we used to get briefed on all the big cases, none of which became public, or very few of which became public, apart from my misadventure with Madonna, which is a story for another day. But what happened on one occasion was they were saying there was this 14-year-old girl who kept escaping from the foster home to work as a prostitute at King's Cross. And to be fair, in defence of me, it never crossed my mind to go, oh my God, let's round up the blokes doing it. It was always, what we're going to do with her? Well, she's been in a secure unit for a month. Well, we can't put her in jail, right, because that's what it is. And so...
Well, she wasn't... she's not really a prostitute. She's being raped.
No, she's not a prostitute.
She's being raped. So this is what they try to do, the police force. They go, oh, well, she might be 14, but she's, she behaves like a prostitute. And that's how they got rid of it, when actually that's just rape.
Yeah,
you can't give consent.
Correct. But I'm saying that even somebody like me, in that situation of listening to it, I didn't stop the meeting and go, hang on a minute, that's absolutely terrible. She's not a prostitute. She's being gang raped. But equally, I'll tell you where Robert is wrong. No matter how much you say, so you would call it maybe, Pakistan migration related child sex crimes or whatever, but not every single one of them's Pakistani of Pakistani descent, and that then gives the problem. So you can go, oh, that's a cop out, but that then gives the problem that suddenly, if one of the gang's not a Pakistani, then we don't take action.
I mean, speaking to survivors and victims and the families of it, it is like Albanians, for example. There's a massive issue in that with Bolton to Bury. They go to Bury and then they they go to Bolton and then transfer them there.
Is it just people who've emigrated from the Islamic world? I mean,
not just, obviously. There are grooming gangs which are white British, but the majority of them, and I think the aspect is that these grooming gangs that are from Muslim countries, that are from third world countries, the police are more inclined to look the other way because they're worried about community tensions. When it's a white British gang, they do get locked up, and there are those instances.
I've often thought that, like in school maths, there's two axes, isn't there? There's the x-axis and the y-axis. If you want to know how many people are victims of crime, then what you have is, you have on one axis the number of offenders, but then on the other axis you have the amount of time they get away with it. And so you think to yourself, well, okay, even if every single person in a particular area had proclivity towards, there we go, put the teeth back in, proclivity towards doing this, if they were only allowed to groom a child for 10 minutes, i.e. talk to them online and then got arrested, then there would be no victims at all. Right, but if you let them go on for 15 years, the number of victims will explode, and that's where that's where I feel sorry for people of Pakistani descent, because the police have turned around and gone, we will arrest everybody for this crime unless they're Pakistani. Therefore, it looks like the Pakistani community is far worse than anyone else, which is only true because the amount of time they've been allowed to get away with it.
Because it's enabled. They do it almost openly when I hear some of the stories around these areas. People know it's going on.
Yeah.
They know it's... So this is a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we should put as much emphasis on the authorities who have turned the other way, who have turned a blind eye to this, and I think they deserve as severe punishments as the people doing it.
How many of them are still covering it up now?
Well, who's to say? It's definitely still going on, though.
Why is it still going on? I know that's a difficult question, but you've got some knowledge of this.
I honestly couldn't say. Again, the police still want to look the other way, the authorities want to look the other way, and because there's limited resources and it's politically incorrect to say, and also these girls, they don't have any other support a lot of the time, so it's just enabled.
A lot of them are in the actual political positions as well, the family members.
My advice is very, very, very simple. My advice is very simple. If you believe that your child is the victim of a grooming gang, misgender the person doing it online. You know, put some online insults out there. That'll get the police excited.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, they won't be worried about the rape. They'll be worried about the misgendering. And then you say to the police, hey, listen, take me to court on misgendering and I'll stand up in that court and say exactly why I misgendered that paedophile down the road who's raping my daughter. And I'll name you as a member of the gang. In fact, I'll go wild in my testimony in front of a packed audience of journalists.
But I think it's also to say as well, like...
By the way, sorry, just to say, God bless an inability to sue if you say it in court. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, you rightly mentioned, you know, the fact that the state acts on, when it comes to gender ideology, they're very quick to act and give therapy, for example, to kids who say they want to cut the genitals off and become the other gender. You know, if you say you're transgender and you're 13, you get therapy just like that. I've spoken to victims who have been waiting for years to receive therapy and still aren't, because their cases have been, you know, dismissed, and they have to, you know, go out their way to prove it. So in order to receive that support, you know, they have to put themselves out there, which is incredibly difficult when you've gone through such traumatic stuff. And there's no specialist thing. You know, we talk about Tavistock, the gender clinic. There's no similar thing to that towards grooming, which is the worst thing happening in this country. You know, like
you don't see Keir Starmer saying the film should be shown throughout schools, which is a real serious crime that's going on all over. And there have been very good documentaries, haven't there?
I mean, Starmer didn't even watch the grooming gang documentary, did he? The one recently.
Well, he says he doesn't. Like, he says he doesn't know anything about Lucy Connolly case. Everyone else did.
Asher has had a bugbear about this for many months, where he goes, what Starmer always says is, I didn't personally see it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Anne is in
Plausible deniability, but it's implausible.
Anne, you're on talk.
What I wanted to say was that poor Lucy Connolly, she lost a baby a year before being put in prison, so obviously she's got postnatal depression.
Due to government negligence, the NHS negligence, which is exactly what happened with these three girls, government negligence again. So she got a flashback and she's traumatised, and they had no empathy for this mother who had a daughter who was about 13 in crucial years of her life. How evil is that?
Yeah, and she's got postnatal depression, and that's what they should have, put the grounds forward to get the poor lady out.
And she ran a nursery, and she had lots of, parents from Africa. They all loved her. She's not at all racist in any way.
The only problem is, of course, she sponsored a Nigerian family to move to the UK and get citizenship. Yeah. So my view is, lock her up. Let's just increase the sentence now. Yeah. Right? Come on. No, we're not having that. We're not having that. But it's amazing with Lucy Connolly, isn't it? But also we had, and I'll put this to you, Jess, because I thought it was really interesting. Tom Harris, director of the Free Speech Union, last week made the following point: that in the United States of America, you are not. It's not considered incitement unless something's immediately likely to happen. So if I say, like she said, why don't we burn down all the hotels with migrants in? Unless somebody actually attempts to do it, or it's likely that somebody attempts to do it, it's not really incitement. Because I always give the example of Steve Penk from Key 103, the radio star, who every time he used to wind somebody up, they'd go, I'll kill her when I get her. That is not a threat to kill. It isn't.
Yeah, and she didn't even say that. She said, I don't care if someone burns down these hotels, for all I care, she said at the end. She didn't actually say go out and do it. And like you say, it doesn't meet the threshold. I mean, Charles Manson, the murderer in America, he never actually murdered anyone. He sent his followers to go and murder. Now, that's actual incitement, where you send someone to go and kill people.
Yes. OK, well, we were going to go back to Anne, but she did hang up. I appreciate that.
Can't blame her.
We weren't speaking to her for a while. OK, when we come back, we're going to be talking about whether you would investigate a rape gang. More next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. I think some of the stuff on screen may have departed from some of the audio on YouTube.
That's the beauty.
By the way, I do want you to follow us on YouTube. We always forget to mention it. Well, what's our handle these days? At Talk Radio, at Talk TV. Total confused.
Yeah, at Andre JP Walker, at Virtual Ash, at Jess Gill.
03.
From the women's...
Right, I'm going to eat a donut. So you talk about
American.
You talk about your Women's Safety Initiative, I'll eat
Yeah, so what is the latest news with the Women's Safety Initiative?
Yeah, so we recently had a mini event outside of Parliament, just raising awareness of several things, including we raised awareness of Lucy Connolly, of course. That's one of the biggest things that's impacting women and free speech. Also, I think after Lucy Powell's horrendous comments, we wanted to show that, you know, it isn't just a dog whistle. This is
the
something...
minister in the BBC programme who was asked about the grooming gang, she said, oh, that old dog whistle.
The dog whistle, yeah. Well, we wanted to show that...
Blowing that little trumpet, she said.
It's not a dog whistle.
Hundreds of thousands of girls raped. Well, it's just blowing a little trumpet. Forget about that.
So we stood outside Parliament with posters of the victims, like Charlene Downs, who was murdered. There are so many instances where women were young girls. They're not women, they're young girls.
You should take little trumpets with you to the protests and all blow little trumpets and dog whistles.
That's how she sees it. Yeah. And the amount of people, even in Westminster, which I assumed would be very touristy and very woke, the amount of women who came up to us saying, we support what you do, keep up, Labour are failing. You know, I think the tide is turning. I think people are starting to wake up and they're not afraid. And the amount of support we've received, we just started just over a month ago. We have around 14,000 followers on Twitter, thousands of followers across all social media platforms, and 200 women signing up. And when they sign up, they're not saying it out of hate or bigotry like the left would accuse us of. They're signing up because they're afraid what their granddaughters are going to go through. They're afraid to walk just in London without their boyfriends, without their partners.
What areas do you focus on? Is it just the grooming gangs?
No, it's not just the grooming. I think the grooming gangs are the epitome of this. They're the key example. They're, you know, the most extreme example of this. But I think the day-to-day harassment that...
Well, that's from mass... Well, not just that, but mass immigration doesn't help, does it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is...
Have you been accused of being far-right yet?
Oh, too many times. But at this point...
I saw that one that made the news, didn't it, where they sort of attacked you.
Yeah, they accused us of far-right. They called us fascists. They didn't spell fascism
But they attacked you at a protest, I remember seeing. I don't know if it was a Palestine one.
We were covering the anti-Tommy Robinson one. That was a while back.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not guilty of incitement, I don't know who is these marches. I mean, we saw what happened in Washington today. Those two people murdered, and the guy's going free. He's like one of those. He is one of those marchers. So this is inciting it, and we saw Lammy today inciting it. You know, saying 14,000 babies, which has turned out to be utter. I mean, you just think about it. It's impossible. There wouldn't be 14,000 babies about to starve. We would have seen pictures, and it's just unbelievable that they're It's like that hospital with the 500 have been killed after 10 minutes.
Larry's a fat wanker, isn't he? I'm sorry, I'm just going to say that. He really is. He really is.
Yeah. No, I can't. He says say something nice about him, but I can't. You know, you can't use words like that.
Allow me to justify.
Jess, have you got anything nice to say? No, she hasn't either.
Allow me to justify that. You know, he's a man who's come into his career and fundamentally has been successful because of racism. Right, he went into Harvard at a time they were heavily discriminating against Chinese people or people of, I don't know what you call them, people from Asia, because of their ability to do mathematics and whatever. And he was able to come in. The Chagos Island deal, I think, takes us closer to war, and that makes you a W, if nothing else, bringing us closer to war. But also,
you could have used that the first time.
The level of dishonesty about Gaza and about Donald Trump has been extraordinary as well. Should I have not said that? I won't say that.
He's gone back on the Donald Trump thing. He loves him now. He gave him extra chicken.
I won't say that again, but he really is. What annoys me is that he is just a fool, and he infests that political position, and he's making this country far less safe. We've got Miliband making this country less safe because of his net zero nuttery. You've got Starmer making Britain less safe because he believes that everyone abides by international treaties, which is mad.
Reeves destroying the economy. It's like the group of The Apprentice, you know, when they go in 2 groups and there's 6 of them. They're like people from The Apprentice.
By the way, can I tell you what I would do if I was on The Apprentice? Right, what you've got to do is make some money. And Team A has made 200 quid. Team B, led by Andre, what did you make? 15 grand. What did you do? Well, I put those cars on Uber, and I put the house on Airbnb, and we went out. We went out and all did minimum wage cleaning jobs. Right?
I like it, Andre. I like it.
That would, if you've got 4 cars working full time, they'll do 1,200 a week each in London. Right? You could get the house. You could get that out for maybe 5,000 a week for tourists. Then we could pitch a tent, and all 8 of us could go minimum wage, 10 quid an hour.
It wouldn't look good on the programme, wouldn't it? When he's flying on his helicopter and you just set up 4 Ubers.
Whereas actually you go. In the end, at the end of the Apprentice, he goes, "All right, you've made 300 quid. 300 quid. That doesn't even cover the petrol." Right?
Yeah, but do you remember when in Amstrad his company got ruined because he invented an emailer, an email that you can do on your phone, and no one of his guys were. They were all obviously yes men, going, "Yeah, this is a great idea, Alan," and laughing, and it ruined Amstrad in the end.
It was dreadful.
He did great things, but that
I love
was,
that. Here is Alan Sugar in a helicopter he doesn't own, flying past Canary Wharf where he doesn't have an office.
In an office he doesn't run. Yeah, we've gone off topic.
All right,
let's make sense of everything with Heather.
No, why don't we go to a break and then go to Heather in Gavan? Okay, we'll go to Heather in Gavan.
No, we've got time for Heather.
Here we go. Come on, Heather.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Heather.
Well, I'm going to talk about the DC shooting.
Right.
The 2 Israeli embassy staff who got killed in DC.
Yeah.
It is absolutely atrocious. What's going on?
Well, Netanyahu's come out and blamed, you know, the rhetoric from the Canadian, the French, and our leader. And he's right. I mean, you look at what Lammy did, and you look at it's now been debunked, the 14,000 babies going down, but a lot of them have still left their tweets up saying it. They're not backing down because they don't really care. They just want to have the blood libel that's been going on since the 12th century.
Well, the problem is there's a deep conceded hatred towards Jewish people in this world, and it's absolutely disgusting.
Do you think there is, though? I mean, if you look, we haven't spoken since Eurovision, right? Once again, Israel got nothing from the juries and won the international vote, right? Now, okay,
the people's vote.
If you assume that the song wasn't very good, which I think is reasonable, then actually what happened is, the year Ukraine came under attack, Ukraine got the biggest vote. The year Israel have come under attack, Israel got the biggest vote.
Ukraine won, Israel didn't win because the official judges didn't make them win, and that's because they're captured. Every institution is captured by the leftists, and like you say, the majority of the 90% of the population are with Israel and all the other sensible things that we talk about.
We need to support our Israeli people because Israel is our ally, for God's sake.
So let me go to Jess, because
she's a massive Eurovision fan.
All right. It's very easy to say that Eurovision is all about the song, but to be fair, let's cite some evidence against that. We went back to 50% national juries because people were just voting for people they liked rather than on the quality of the song. We saw Ukraine receive the largest ever public vote. Israel, once again, and I think it happened last year, certainly in Britain, Israel won the public vote on both years, but once again, Israel wins the public vote. And, of course, that says to me, forget the national juries, forget who's been captured, that says to me that in reality, ordinary people across Europe are extremely concerned about Islamic fascism, Hamas, and the role of Iran, and anti-Semitism. Now, am I talking bull, or is actually the Eurovision proof of that?
No, I completely agree. I didn't watch the Eurovision in all honesty. But I think people are misled because the Palestine crowd...
loud.
They're very loud and they're very militant and they're very in your face. But I think especially the British people, they don't like that.
No.
And I think...
Well, the lefty ones do, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, when I turn on the BBC during that period after October the 7th, I mean, I was concerned about what was going on in Israel. I was concerned about what was going on in Gaza. Went to Israel during that period, right? But fundamentally, the number one political issue in Britain was still healthcare, was still education, was still taxation, was still the economy, was still the cost of living crisis. If you watched the BBC, if you watched ITV, if you watched Sky, you would believe that the number one issue being talked about in every pub, in every chippy, in every dining room table in Britain was the plight of the Palestinians in Gaza. And that simply was not true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the British people, honestly, they're too concerned about the fact that they have to choose between heating or eating, or they can't get healthcare. And I think there is a solidarity with Israel, with the British people in general. But the ones who are protesting for Palestine, they have all the time in the world, probably because they're students and unemployed, realistically, or they're paid activists.
Are you aware, right? You're going to love this. The Taxpayers Alliance, when they announce something, they told me this, when they announce something, normally, from when they announce something at 8 a.m, from 8 a.m. till midday, they get positive social media coverage. At midday, they start getting negative media coverage. That's because the people, the lefties, are out of bed at midday. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, we can talk about it right now. Hello and welcome back. This is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Okay, we were just finishing the conversation there. What is it that you wanted to talk about?
So
this is Jess Gill, by the way, who founded the Women's Safety Initiative. Brilliant project, by the way.
Thank you. So in partner with the Women's Safety Initiative, we've partnered with another organisation that I'm working on, which is Trafalgar Analytics, which is basically a think tank towards creating a narrative, redefining the narrative, and creating data that isn't, just woke leftism, which is really needed.
Factual data.
Factual data, yeah. And so one thing that we've done recently, which is desperately needed, is we've done a report on the grooming gangs, basically showing the facts of it, showing that it is majority Muslim, it's majority Asian grooming gangs, and the victims are white. And we've gone into why this has been shoved under the rug, why this has been neglected, and it's mostly because of political pressure and the authorities turning the other way.
What is the nature of the political pressure? Have we worked it out yet?
I think they're worried about being called racist.
No, but like, what's the transaction? I mean, we know about Simon Danchuk, who, unbelievable. Simon Danchuk, when the MP for Rochdale, because he had a text conversation with a teenage girl, they were going, oh, he's also a groomer, right? Which is attempting to put him in the same category as somebody who raped someone. Just unbelievable.
Well, a lot of these councils, are run by family members of this or other people who've covered it up and don't want to lose their voters.
But we know that MPs spoke to him and said, do not raise this as an issue. What happens? Does the chief executive of the council speak to the local imam and say, hey, we're going to cover this up? How does it work? What's the transaction?
Well, obviously, different instances have different situations,
Right.
and there are a lot of cases like you mentioned. But I think it doesn't even need to be like that. I mean, a lot
And
of these
not as good as a wink, you reckon? People effectively know not to mention
they
anything.
know not to mention it because the ideology that they've been pushing for the past few years, that multiculturalism is a success, that we need multiculturalism, that it's built Britain, immigration has built Britain. In order to say that, that has been failing in the worst way possible, in the sense young girls have been raped by Pakistani grooming gangs, to admit that, then you're just debunking your whole ideology.
But okay, in India they have something called the love jihad, right? And the love jihad, the concept is that that Muslim men are encouraged to go out and sow their wild oats in order to create more Muslim children to make an area demographically more Islamic. Now let's just be clear. This is an allegation being made in India that may well not translate to the United Kingdom. But is there a sense that that any of these people actually want a genuine relationship, actually want to have children with these people, and actually want them to be brought up in the Islamic faith?
I mean, I don't think so.
You've never seen that?
There are cases where obviously a Muslim man and a white British woman will get together, and I'm sure they'll have a lovely relationship.
Yes.
I have friends who are like that. But there are a lot of these instances, as we've discussed before, where a lot of these young Pakistani men, they present as the girl's boyfriend, they lure them and they drug them, and then they get their friends on them, and that's what's happening. And the authorities have looked the other way. And not just the authorities who are in direct contact with these girls, but in terms of the academics, in terms of the policymakers, because they don't have to be so close to it.
The other thing is, and I've made this point before, and what I'm about to say I've got no proof of at all, but it just seems logical to me. If I go to my local chippy, right, my local chippy does not have a network of safe houses and taxi firms employed permanently to move people and drugs in between the various safe houses. These are criminal gangs as much as they are rapists, aren't they? I mean, they must be. The average kebab shop owner does not have the capacity to have drivers on at 3 in the morning who can move people and drugs from safe house to safe house. I mean, it's a kebab shop, for God's sake.
I mean, just going on to the British High Street, for example, like I live in Tottenham, and there are so many of these shops that are open 24/7. And I just wonder who's getting, their groceries.
The nails done.
After,
Who's getting the nails done at 3 in the morning?
3 in the morning.
Why wants American chocolate?
They're right next to one another, and I just wonder that can't be economically profitable. So where are they?
We went in. I went in when I was doing that. Was the work there was. Got to bring that back, by the way. I was trying to buy a box of roses. Is it Cadbury's roses? Whatever it is, that little.
Yeah, Cadbury's roses.
Now those boxes are about £4.50 in Tesco, but it was £25 on Oxford Street. And the bloke went, what you have to understand is this is a city centre. I thought to myself, actually, it's to do with destroying them afterwards. So if you think a wrap of cocaine is 50 quid, so you have to destroy 2 boxes of roses per £50 you put in the till, right? Otherwise, it doesn't work. The whole money laundering operation.
They probably eat them rather than destroy them.
The big problem is, if you have then, what is it, £4.50, 12 boxes for every wrap of cocaine, it starts to become a real bum, a real pain in the bum to get rid of them. Yeah. So presumably what they do is they put up the prices massively in these American candy stores, and then obviously they sell off a comparatively small number of items.
I don't even know why they bother with that. The police obviously know what's going on.
Yeah, but they were ignoring it for years, weren't they? And that's because, HMRC were doing all right out of it. They thought, well, this is all right. We're getting a few quid into the exchequer. We'll turn it off. But suddenly there's been a public pressure and there's been a little bit of action. But the main reason is, like people like Jess Phillips only won by 600 votes. We saw Angela Rayner going in and talking to Just Men with her hair covered up. They're kowtowing to them because they don't really care about this country, but they do care about, they see what's happening demographically.
And it's just going to get worse and worse. I mean, we look at the success of reform. Now they have 5 MPs plus Rupert Lowe, so that's 6 MPs who are actively on an immigration platform. But then if you look at the other side, you have Jeremy Corbyn and his band, what's it called? The Islamic ones.
One on Gaza, the Gaza issue.
Yeah, and cousin marriage as well.
Yeah, and the Pakistan airport from the MP in Birmingham, while they've got rats the size of donkeys running round.
The metaphor has got bigger and bigger every time.
Yeah, not only that, they're wearing biker jackets now. Roy in Chelmsford.
Ray.
And him.
Ray.
Ray.
Come on, Ray.
Hello, mate.
Go on, Ray.
Hello, lads. Young lady as well. She's brilliant. What she's doing.
She is brilliant.
No.
She's
all right.
I want to say we're incredibly proud of everything that you're doing for women in this country.
We are.
We'll try and nominate her for an MBE. There's no way. There's no way the Starmer government.
Damehood.
Yeah, that's right. Peerage.
But anyway, the point I wanted to make was about Lucy Connolly. I hope it's okay. I mean, the fact is that she did nothing to incite violence. She did nothing to say that at all. It's just the same from up north. I've got friends from Northern, for all I care. It's just the same. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was Ricky Jones, a Labour councillor.
Oh, isn't that ongoing though? I mean, I know what you mean, but we can't really, with it being ongoing. But he wasn't even remanded, so yeah, I understand. But we can't talk about it until the case has happened. But I know what you mean. It's basically a two-tier system. Lucy Connolly was a wife of a Tory councillor. They wouldn't have done that to a Labour councillor.
Is this our throat-cutting friend?
Yeah.
Oh, it is an ongoing case, yeah. But Ray, I think it's fair to say we will see what happens, won't we?
Yeah, it's August. I'm looking forward to it.
No, it's not. It's May.
Is it May?
Yeah, call us back in August, Ray, and we'll talk.
No. I mean, the case comes up in August.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Anyway. Also, what it is I've researched for years with Maggie Oliver's case about the kids and the children, whatever.
Rape gangs, yeah.
And I see it, and I'm absolutely fuming now just listening about it.
She should be running that whole investigation.
Quite right.
I mean, they asked the councils who were guilty of it whether they want to be investigated. It's like asking a murderer, do you want to be investigated? They go, no, of course not.
Right,
Anyway,
Ray, we're going to have to leave you there. Ray in Chelmsford. Obviously, look, there are cases coming up now which are going to be extremely interesting, and I have to say what we will find out about two-tier justice will be apparently a myth, according to the Labour government.
And the
Gill,
Ukrainian models.
I'll tell you what I think we should do. Why don't we give Jess Gill a round of applause from everyone for the way that she's supporting women. Here we go, come on. Hey, come on, hey. We can do better than that.
Jess. Woo.
No, well,
Keep it up, man.
She's well on her way to a peerage from reform.
Have you got any events coming up quickly?
Not yet, no.
Good, right, okay. Well,
all right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We will advertise all of your events and make sure that people pop along to them. If you want to call us in the press if you want to call us after the press preview, 0344 499 1000. After this, guess how many migrants are in
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Pete Barnes is our guest co-host this evening for the press preview. Pete, how are you?
I'm doing all right,
It's
Andre.
been a little while.
It's been a long time, actually, yeah.
Man.
We've got to bring back That Was the Way That Was.
We really do, we really do.
But-
More now so than ever. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that's going on.
But you've got your own show now.
Yes, so launching on Tuesday, I'm doing Breaking Embargo. I sit down with a guest at the top of their field and we're talking solutions. Not just complaining about it, we're looking for solutions to the biggest problems the nation faces.
Where can one find it?
So it'll be...
Breaking
Embargo.
Bungo.
So it'll be live on my YouTube channel, which is just Peter Barnes.
And it is just Peter Barnes?
Yeah, it's just on there, and you'll be able to find me. And it's every Tuesday. There's a brand new episode. It's everyone from Alex Phillips. I've got Ben Habib. I've sitting down with Dr. Roger Gewald. Loads and loads of people that people will recognise, not just from talk, but from right across the political spectrum as well.
Great.
Fantastic,
Okay.
man.
Right, well, in that case, let's just ask ourselves this question. Just before we do the press preview, we wanted to bring you this. It's not breaking news, but really, really important. New migration data released by the Office of National Statistics today says that around 1 in 25 people living in Britain arrived in the last 4 years. That's just off the back of saying, I think last week, when we discovered that 17 million people have arrived in the United Kingdom since the year 2000. Pete, we can't keep going like this, can we?
I mean, how many times do we actually have this conversation about we can't keep going, because we are literally at breaking point. At some point we have to realise that the country can't support this many people. The infrastructure is crumbling. You can't get a doctor's appointment. The dentist situation is out of control. School places, non-existent. You know, at some point we have to realise that this country has bent over backwards and it can't keep doing it.
Well, you can't get an ambulance now. It's sort of accepted. Oh, you
Yeah.
might not get it for 10 hours. You might just be dead on the floor. That would never have been accepted. We used to go, oh, it wasn't there within 7 minutes. That's outrageous.
And I think that's the interesting thing, Ash, is the fact that we've now come to accept it as this is what's happening now. That is the scariest thing.
queuing up
we have
outside
just come
casualty.
to accept that we are at the back of the queue in our own country.
Well, we're forced to, because if you say anything, you end up in jail.
I've just realised something. You have done something very smart, haven't you? You registered at Peter Barnes years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. There's nothing on it at the moment.
No, it's not at the minute.
But it is your YouTube channel.
I
right?
registered that about,
In 2006.
2006, is it really? Was that? Well, God, I was smart.
Great. Okay. Well, look. What can we do? Can I make a suggestion? You know, I'm more to the right than you, but you are obviously a Conservative. I say anyone convicted of any criminal offence at all who was born outside the UK needs to go home.
Yeah, go home.
Just get rid of them.
Just get rid of them.
Also, I think the war is over. You need to go home.
Yeah.
Now, nothing wrong, by the way, with people who've come over as a result of being refugees who then want to come back as on a work visa. And then, of course, the British Bangladeshi Caterers Association, which I know you went to dinner of a couple of years ago. What they're saying is, if you bring people over for work visas, there should be no route to citizenship.
I think that's fair enough. I think that's right.
Those three things would be superb.
And no benefits as well if you haven't paid into the system.
That seems to be Angela Rayner's new thing, doesn't it? She launched this quiet attack on Rachel Reeves at a leaked memo. It's my favourite phrase in politics, leaked. Nothing's accidentally leaked.
Leaked memo, i.e. that means crossed the road, went to the Red Lion and went, there you go, there's the memo. Can you quote me?
Yeah, it's amazing, really. But the big one that I always go back to is that people keep thinking pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights is the silver bullet. It isn't. This is a whole-scale problem that needs root and branch solutions, because I think it goes back down to even our trade policy, that things like the customs union has kept these countries out of economic development, so they're all coming here. That is the reality. This is a real problem.
Nudge Diva, the former Conservative MEP, reckoned that EU trade tariffs had killed 1 million Africans.
Oh,
it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me, and yet the main driver is the poor economic situations in other countries that is forcing people here. You want to stop the people coming, you literally have to invest, and I mean invest, not spend, but invest in these countries to allow them to develop, to get what they call the grey jobs, the kind of middle-class jobs, and then people will stay. There is
that what
opportunity.
China are doing in Africa? I mean, are they doing a good thing in some way?
Well, in a way, it's not the wrong thing, but they're doing it for more nefarious reasons.
They're colonising.
I met somebody who was a very, very He was the boss of a major mining company. He said the problem with Africa is it's uninvestable. He said if you try and build a big mine, it might cost £1 billion. And he said instead of having it properly regulated, instead of having the proper license, instead of having proper planning permission or whatever, the president says, send my son-in-law 25 million in the Swiss bank account. And he says, and I'll tell you, you spend $1 billion on a mine, and then suddenly 2 years later, the president gets shot, a new government comes in, and the thing gets nationalised. He said, you can't invest. He said, that's why the Chinese are there, because they've got the boots on the ground, the military force.
Well, look at South Africa, what's going on there now?
Well, there's a prime example. South Africa is ripe for a major investment. It is a major economic hub. Everybody's talking
but like
about
you say,
there's no
stability.
Do you know how much is stolen from the national the national electricity provider in South Africa every month? It's R1 billion, which I think is £53 million a month, is stolen by ANC officials. Anyway, let's talk to Myron Senthil Nathan, the former candidate for Reform UK. And just to explain, this is the press preview. We will be reviewing the press, but we're just talking about this breaking story that the Office for National Statistics has said that 1 in 25 people living in the UK now did not live here 4 years ago. Myron, I mean, look, some people can see you, other people can hear from your name that you're Sri Lankan or of Sri Lankan descent. Migration has done something good for this country, but 17 million in 25 years is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when my parents came here in the early 1980s, I think net immigration was in the tens of thousands, 20,000, 30,000, something along that range. So that allows integration. And at these levels, what you're going to get is people effectively forming silos, which is what we see. We see whole sections of the country from East London to Bradford to Birmingham to Luton to Leicester, whole cities, whole towns effectively being dominated by a certain community. Now, I don't blame the migrants. I mean, if you're coming to a strange country, a foreign country, you're going to go with people that you know, your community, your culture, your religion, all of these things are going to be,
But where's the gratitude? You know, you should have to blend in. I mean, I heard this week, I don't know if it's true, that 43% of people in Leicester can't speak English or speak it very poorly. I mean, there is some blame on them for just coming here and taking.
You can say that, but I blame the government. I think
initially it's their fault. Yeah,
it is the government, because if you have mass immigration at this scale, naturally people will gravitate to people like them of the same culture and nature. I mean, there was a Daily Mail article recently about, I think it was Nelson in Lancashire, where basically you could go and live in that town and that city and not speak English, and you could effectively just go about your daily business, indefinitely, and not know a word of English.
And if you do speak English, no one understands you in the shops. You know what I mean? It's like the other way. It's like you almost need an interpreter when you go to some hospitals now.
Exactly. But what we have to look at with the government is, Kemi Badenoch says that, this country is not a hotel, it's not a dormitory, but I don't think she's gone far enough. Successive governments have effectively pimped out this country on a street corner. And I think it's as severe as that. This country has been opened up, even with the Chagos deal, if you look at that, at so many different levels, with the EU, with the Chagos deal, with mass immigration. This country has been opened up and been essentially violated by successive governments. And when you see people, accusing people of gravitating towards the right, voting reform, the government is effectively radicalising the British people. And if there wasn't a party like Reform for that outlet of resentment and rage and anger to be put into a democratic, peaceful avenue, if that wasn't there, I really worry about the state of affairs in our community.
Can I ask you about this? When we talk about the takeover of towns, David Starkey came on here and said something that really struck me, and I've been talking about it ever since, this idea of tribal areas. And when he says tribal areas, he's not talking about the obvious suggestions. The obvious reason you might call it a tribal area. What he's saying is you are transporting people one by one from, say, Pakistan, from Bangladesh, into a particular street, into a particular district. So it's not true to say that migration has affected everywhere equally. What's happened is there are some areas now which are, if you like, the Pakistani area. There are some areas that are the Bangladeshi area, and so on and so forth. And that, in of itself, is going to cause racial tensions, because there will be, the Pakistani tribal area will be ruled in a certain way, and the white tribal area will be ruled in a different way.
And it changes the political, landscape. Look at what's happened in those towns where they're not British anymore. They voted on issues that don't even affect this country. So something's got to be done about that.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the Rotherham, I think there was recently a mayor. She was elected, or she was appointed in Rotherham. I think Rukhsana Ismail, if I remember her name correctly, and she literally says, I am representing Pakistan.
Well, she first did it not in English, didn't she?
Women.
She did it not in English first.
Exactly, not even in English. And then you go. That is an island of strangers in a nutshell. You even have Anna Sarwar, who is the head of Scottish Labour, standing in front of a Pakistani flag, effectively saying that we need to infiltrate different levels of government and political parties so that we can set the agenda according to our community. And
can I ask this question? What is the difference between a migrant and a settler?
You'd have to define those things. I don't know.
Well, no. So let me just make this point, because if what you are doing, we've talked about the way that settlers have damaged countries, the way that Aborigines in Australia were undermined by white settlers, the way that the Indian, the Native American population in America was decimated by settlers. Then you say, well, hang on a second. The people that we are bringing over to this country are settlers. Anas Sarwar is a settler in the sense that he believes in Pakistani values, he believes in Pakistani culture, he believes in Pakistani heritage, and he is a Pakistani living in the United Kingdom. Yeah, that makes him a settler, not a migrant.
Sure, I think the distinction lies in there are some people who come to this country and understand that Britain has an indigenous culture. And there are some people that say Britain has no culture. It's effectively an empty matrix for me to settle and bring my culture as I please. And I think that comes from, first of all, the people coming over, but also the weakness of us as a nation and a government ruling us as overall to not set the agenda and say and assert that Britain has its own culture. And,
that's been here. Well, not only that, genetically, they found, the people they found in graves that are 10,000 years old, they found a lot of the people in that area have DNA. They literally have been here thousands of years.
Yeah, and look, there's a BBC documentary, I think last time I was on your show, I think Andre brought it up, about the death of the East London Cockney, right? And how gradually, I watched the BBC documentary, it's from 2016, it's called The Last Whites of East London, something along those lines. Really great documentary, very, very sad. And you start to see how people are lamenting how my grandfather, my great-grandfather did this, and now I don't recognise my community. I don't understand how the culture's changed. The shops are different. The people are different. No one speaks English.
They wanted to change it to Bangla Town, didn't they? And the signs on the underground are in, different language.
In Urdu.
Yeah.
In Urdu.
And they talk about how their people that went to school with have left. And then what happens is you get a mass exodus of one community and a kind of, introduction of completely a different community. And that's how it happens.
Yeah, but they don't have the same culture. I mean, the Jews lived in the East End, but they sort of became the Cockneys. But it depends on what the immigrants want to change.
And this is what mass immigration has brought up, the fact that we have different cultures that exist in the world. And, multiculturalism is this idea that Britain has no indigenous culture and that all cultures are equal and of equal pegging.
That's
and it's
rubbish.
simply a myth, and we're discovering that firsthand.
Pete.
So the fundamental difference is the transitory nature. So a migrant is the consistent, they move from A to B. A settler is somebody who moves from A and stays in B. That's the difference. And you're bang on to make that distinction. And it is something that we don't talk enough about, is that there is the transitory nature, is that they move. My problem is when we talk about multiculturalism, and I bang on about this point, people say it hasn't worked. That is not true. It's worked perfectly.
You've said this thousands
of times because people don't understand it. Multiculturalism is not about cultures living together. Its central tenet is the rejection of the native culture. It is saying that you can be whoever you want to be, your political values, your social values, everything within that culture, and it doesn't matter about the native one. That's the point. It's not that it's about people coexisting. It's about the fact fact that you do silo, that you do separate, and that's the core tenet. Is people really talk about multiculturalism in the wrong way?
It's multiracialism. It's good.
Yes,
yeah.
that's the point. It's multiracialism.
You have the British culture of any race.
No, hang on a second. Multiracialism isn't good. It should be neutral.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what race you are, but you just be British culturally.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, and I do think that we.
By the way, can I tell you something else? I'm not going to say this publicly because you get into trouble. Yeah. Race is a different type of animal. It's different breeds. Right?
Oh,
right?
God.
You don't say my Labrador's racist against my Chihuahua.
I forgot what it was like on the show.
Can you imagine? We've got lots of different breeds of humans knocking around.
You said you weren't going to say that publicly, and then said it publicly.
I know, yeah, but also the thing that we have to, whilst we obsess over the small boats and that type of migration, the legal migration problem we have in this country is astronomical. Like, the figures have come out today, and they are reducing, and that's thanks to Conservative policies, not the Labour government. But we obsess over the small boats, but it is the people coming on student visas, it's the people coming on the care visas that are staying.
Well, more now from the EU as well.
Yeah, more from the EU
and India now with it.
So
it is a real problem.
Just very quickly, because we're sticking with Pete Barnes, he's co-hosting the press preview, which is coming up in a moment. But Myron Central, Nathan, just one final question. So, Reform ahead in the polls, are you pretty happy?
I'm stoked. I think this is a once-in-a-century situation. I think that the Conservative Party are on life support at the moment, and we could see the obliteration of the Conservative Party within the next year or so. And big prediction, I'm going to be a prophet, and I'm going to predict a general election by early 2027 as the Labour Party implodes and the backbenchers lose their rag and the whole thing just...
Where are you running for, Myron?
Sorry?
Where are you running for?
I'm running for a where or who?
Where?
Where? What? Where?
I haven't decided. I mean, look, whatever. If Reform want me and they put me, I'd go wherever. I'm not too fussed.
I have to say, and Pete will no doubt respond to this after the break. Thank you so much to Myron Central, Nathan.
Thanks, Myron.
I believe that the problem the Conservative Party has got is a moment that I call exodus, which is when they are no longer the predominant right-wing brand in this country, and actually are voting for them makes it less likely that you will get Conservative governments. That is when I think they start to have problems, and I believe that we've passed that moment. Anyway, Pete Barnes will respond to that in just a mo.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and we did promise that we'd give you a press preview, even though time is marching on. Just to explain to you, the reason why we slightly delayed it was solely because there's some breaking news today that the Office for National Statistics has now said 1 in 25 people in Britain were not in the United Kingdom 4 years ago, and of course that comes on the back of 17 million people having come to Britain since the year 2000. Anyway, Pete, we were talking a little bit about reform. Obviously, you have remained with the Conservative Party for whatever reason, some sort of problem, illness,
common sense.
So, as you know, I love the Conservative Party. Was vice chairman of the Young Conservatives. I've done all sorts. I gave up. Why are you still sticking with them? I'm sorry, that's a loaded question, but why are they still a good brand to stick with?
Because it's because it's tried and tested.
Is it?
Yeah, I do think it is, because eventually reform will implode. It will. History tells you that it will. Like, look what happened at UKIP, look what happened to the Brexit. Look, every single time these people get together in a room, they get near power and they just implode. And it's going to happen, and his name is Rupert Lowe.
But isn't
Rupert
that
Lowe
what...
is going to tear down reform, and he's going to do it not because he doesn't care about reform. He's going to do it because of the way he was treated, and he has. But the thing is, they have an opportunity now, reform, to get rid of that by getting rid of Nigel.
But let's live.
Get rid of Nigel, and reform will.
Let's live in the real world. Rupert Lowe's going to join the Conservative Party, isn't he?
I don't know.
He is, though, isn't he?
I think they probably will take him.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
All of these rumours that Rupert Lowe was conspiring with the Conservative Party, they're all going to be proved to be true.
I don't know whether it's kind of conspiring, but I do think he'll join. But he's made it. I think he'll have some kind of list of like a rider. Basically, he'll say, "I'm only joining if this happens." And
28 bottles of Lucas.
It'll be interesting to see how far the party will bend to actually to get him on
I think
board.
quite a lot.
I think they will.
But haven't they caused permanent damage? I mean, no one sees the Tories as what they were. They say they're the Lib Dems, and let's face it, Boris Johnson, who said that the capitulation of Starmer to the EU was like being the gimp, making Britain the gimp with the ball in the mouth. You know, he let in $1 million a year. That's net, not even gross. And isn't that they've permanently damaged Britain with that? Isn't that unforgivable? Permanently finished the Tories.
No, I don't think it's permanently finished the Tories, because the fundamental reality is nobody turned out at the locals for reform. 3 men in a whippet does not a revolution make. That's the reality.
It wasn't bad, was it?
It was one of the worst we've ever seen. You look at the turnout; it was absolutely shocking in terms of its. To justify the amount of fuss that we're making over reform. But also, I would actually say that, the Conservatives have a lot to answer for when it comes to immigration. However, I don't think that anybody else has really come to the table with workable policies.
With Kemi Badenoch?
I think Kemi is the right one. I think going Robert...
Did you vote for her?
I didn't vote for either of them.
I thought she was great at first, and then she went weak, and now she's starting to turn it around.
Because I think people were expecting her to come out and say all this kind of stuff. Well, you can't, because it's too close to its last general election. If she starts talking about immigration, people are just going to do exactly what you've done, say, well, you did this and you did that and you did this. There hasn't been enough of a time for it to pass. Isn't
there a fundamental problem, though, with the Conservatives? One of the bigger things, which is just suicidal from their perspective. Theresa May passed all this net zero garbage.
Yes.
That is a nightmare, because that lunatic Miliband, and I believe, as you know, I believe that climate change is a pagan religion, and I believe that he is basically a religious figure rather than a political figure who believes in this as you would do if you were a religious fundamentalist, which is what I think he is. But he continually is able to say, well, you were the people that came up with all this.
Yeah, I could
Same with the immigration. I mean, they are a uniparty in a way. That's what people see.
We're talking about the uniparty. Reform are more uniparty than anybody else, because all they're doing is playing party politics. But anyway, the thing with the net zero stuff, I completely agree with you. You've got to repeal the Climate Act. It is concerning to me that I've yet to hear the Conservatives actually say this out loud, that they've got to repeal their own legislation and that they got it wrong.
See what they might do, Pete. They might not go down Pete Barnes Avenue. What they might do is say we've got to compete with the Liberal Democrats in the southeast of England.
That is a very real possibility, and you're not the first person I've heard say that. I was with some people at CCHQ the other day, and this seems to be a very worrying concern amongst many of us that that's what they're going to do, because Reform have yet to be tested in those areas. The Reform are winning in Brexity areas. They're not winning in Remain areas, and the Tories may consider.
But if we talk about Wigan, right? Reform polling ahead in Lee and Makerfield.
Yeah.
Right. Not Wigan yet. Nandy's a tough thing to crack.
Yeah, she'd be tough.
But you know and I know, and this is what did it for me with the Conservatives. 2019, that should have been the Conservatives.
Yes, it should have.
Because they won Lee. Yeah. For those people who don't know, it's Andy Burnham's old seat. At one point, he held it with a 24,000 majority. One term of James Grundy didn't even bother running again. Can understand that, because it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But now, all of that opportunity in the Red Wall that the Conservatives galvanised, they bilged up. Instead of building all the infrastructure the North needed, they wasted all the money on the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. COVID sank the Tories in the Red Wall. But I would remind people that even Boris Johnson understood this. It was a Lent vote. It wasn't that the Tories were going to hold the Red Wall. They never were.
Do you not think?
No, never were. Because people have to remember that the Red Wall is just one factor. It was a moment for the Conservatives to use that vote to push through Brexit. I don't believe that they would ever have held it. I think we would have seen...
Even if they would have done a good Brexit deal rather than the one they...
I don't think they would have, because I think it would have been. It would have gone back to traditional Labour.
I think Reform will have Lee and maybe Makerfield, and I think it'll be a safe seat.
I think the reality is that people will stay at home because nobody wants to vote. Engagement and turnout will define the next general election, because I don't think even the most ardent reformers. I sit in the studio and I listen to people call in and say like, "Well, I'm a reform supporter, but I didn't bother to vote." I heard that so often.
Well, they didn't bother to register because they were so disengaged.
Yeah, and that's the challenge for.
But winning Runcorn was a significant win.
It was, but again, it was a Runcorn seat. It's built within the momentum of reform at the moment. They've got to keep that going. Whether they can, I don't know. But there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes. And don't forget, the next general election, despite what we've just said, is 4 years away.
Anyway, we are halfway through the press preview. I've done no press preview.
Don't forget Mike Graham, if you're listening on Morning Cut, he's looking through the window. He'll be coming up at 6. Yeah, make sure the studio's clean again. Reds alert, Man United are in crisis. Oh no. Club open to bids for any player, they're just flogging them all off. Billionaire boss and angry fans on collision course. Debt-ridden Man United were in turmoil last night. Every player could be sold after failing to qualify for Europe, left the club with £100 million hole in their finances. I mean, that wouldn't have made a difference to them a few years. £100 million, one player in the old days. Fans blasted billionaire shareholder Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Now, you are a rugby fan. Are you a Man United supporter?
I know nothing about football.
That is mainly
Despite
what
where
rugby
we grew
fans-
up, I know. Somehow, growing up between Manchester and Liverpool, two of the biggest football cities in the world, I know nothing about football.
The only thing I know...
cancelled each other out.
The only thing I know that really worries me is that time and time again, these Premier League clubs are bought on a mortgage, which means that the fans... somebody buys it for free, effectively. Now, no, we can debate the economics of loans, but fundamentally, people are just taking money out and putting nothing in.
Yeah, it's also the impact that this has on local areas.
Yes,
because so many people are related to it. But yes,
sausages half price in Tesco's, and daytime TV ends.
They look awful.
Yeah, they do. They look like veggie sausages. Daytime TV ends as we know it. Yeah, and this is Loose Women panel and top right. This Lorraine looking concerned.
Lorraine
Kelly. The ITV bloodbath, this is, I mean, it all stems, doesn't it? I mean, Good Morning Britain, since Piers left, it's not done very well. It's tanked, hasn't it, with those fools. I like Madeley. Madeley's great, and Suzanne, but that Adil, what's his face, and the other ones.
Well, you don't like that Adil.
Well, we had a bit of a run-in once.
He brought me on Twitter.
Yeah, well, that's a good sign, yeah.
Come on, tell us about the communists at ITV, because that's what people are really interested in.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It just really gets me that they had such a dominance of daytime TV, and it just disintegrated.
Why?
Well, overnight when Piers Morgan did bring in a great audience, it was the best thing on the telly. It killed the BBC.
Couldn't do
and then he left, and it was pretty rubbish. So Tom Bryant on the bitter ITV cuts, fallout, and what it now means for viewers. Nurses fury over pay offer. Yeah, they always do, the nurses, don't they? Anyway, where was that Daily Star? Who are Daily Star? Sold Trafford. That's a good one, isn't it? Man United team barbecue, then fire sale of all the players. Oh dear, how the mighty have fallen. And Jezza, a tree hugger. That's what's his name? He's putting on a few pounds, isn't he? Jeremy, the Top Gear guy.
Jeremy. I can't remember his name.
Jeremy Clarkson, yeah.
I thought that was a bit then.
It's because he's not been on normal telly for ages. You lose track, don't you? And speak Duolingo. They're teaching you how to speak.
You can't speak Cockney anymore because there are no Cockneys.
Yeah, you'd be arrested and thrown in prison probably.
So look, before we go through all the papers, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We've got Pete Barnes here co-hosting, and we've had a long conversation about immigration. Let's go to a break now, and then we're going to do the proper press preview because people are looking forward to it.
Again.
Back in a moment.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Pete Barnes, who is our guest co-host today. I think the first time you've guest co-hosted for a press preview on this show.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
We've worked together a lot on that
Yeah.
but OK, look, the front page of the Times, the Chagos Islands.
Oh, by the way, Mike Graham, you go home, Mike. It's Kev tomorrow. Okay, yeah, it's Kev, actually. He's going to be on at 6 this morning. The Times, Starmer...
Sorry, just to be clear, is he staying in a hotel or has he gone home?
Kev, he's probably gone home. He's not that far from here.
Yeah, it's not
Starmer hands over Chagos to Mauritius, and I watched his speech, and he goes, "For all those people saying we couldn't, we had to do it because they could control the electromagnetic signals." Did you see that?
That was just nonsense.
I mean, just absolute gibberish. But you made a good point in the break. You said because Trump was against it, and then he was for it, and you made the point that, well, now he can just invade it, and of course that's what he'll do because there's American base there, and he'll say national security will, and he couldn't take it off.
So the only people that live on the Chagos Islands are one British governor apparently and military forces, and that's it. So so my view, Pete, and I invite you to comment, which is based on no inside knowledge whatsoever, is that effectively the reason Donald Trump was in favour of this deal is he will say the Chagos Islands now belongs to the United States of America. He'll simply annex it and then just say, I don't care what you think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hard to do that with Britain.
It'd be much more difficult to do that with the Brits involved. But
easy to do it with Mauritius.
And I do think that this is yet again, the British government being played off the field. Like, they are just amateurs on the international stage. Keir Starmer looks like a child wandering around at these big summits. But if we look at it, with India trade deal, a complete surrender. The EU, complete surrender. The American trade deal, please, absolutely laughable.
There was nothing there.
There was nothing there. We have a worse deal now than we did before, so I don't understand how he's doing victory laps. It's laughable. But the thing about the Chagos Islands, I think, for Keir Starmer's perspective, is it is yet again his belief in these supranational organisations that he thinks are the future, and the reality is they're not. The world is dividing more and more up into nation states, and we're going back to a more. But he believes in all this.
He believes if China were to invade Taiwan or attempt to invade Taiwan, you could go to the international court and they would issue an injunction and China would turn the boats round. Yeah, he thinks that's what would happen.
He genuinely believes that, and it's a legitimate worldview, but it is a naive one and a dangerous one at a time where the world has never been more dangerous.
It's because he wants that to be the case.
Yes, he's willing it into existence, and it's not right, and it's dangerous.
The reality is, what is amazing, I don't know what they're called, the Chagosians or whatever they're called, but they oppose this because they want the Chagos Islands for themselves, not to be given to another colonial power. That is the extraordinary bit of this.
It's quite interesting that, yet again, they've barely been consulted in any of this, and they've just been it was David versus Goliath, because there was this court case that was brought forward by
today they won it, and yet they ignored it.
So basically there was an injunction to halt the deal, and then a High Court judge looked at the case again and just said, nope, sorry, they don't really have a judicial leg to stand on, and that's why it's gone ahead. But
must have been a very short party after that.
Well, if you read the judge's ruling, he is actually quite furious that he was even stopped in the first place. He said it shouldn't really have happened. But when we look at this kind of from the international community sense, the idea that you could just give up Diego Garcia, the base, which I think sounds like an ice cream brand.
It was never Mauritian in any time.
In any sense,
it was just run from Mauritius.
But, given the strategic location for Europe, for the UK just to abandon this and the way that it is, it's staggering. But the money is
the money, people are going mad.
Dick Hermer, his mate, the Attorney General.
I like to call him Richard Harmer.
Dick Harmer. He's his mate, isn't he? And he's representing our country, and he's also the lawyer for them.
Yes.
So what's going on there?
I know how that's allowed. I have no idea. But let's be real.
Talk about conflict of interest.
Yeah, because
they
don't believe it's a conflict of interest.
These lawyers
above that.
These lawyers pretend to be completely neutral. Why is it that, what is it, Pierce Bindman or whatever they're called, always represent terrorists?
Yeah.
Oh, whoever comes through our door we represent. No, you don't. You actively solicit these people.
Yeah, they do.
You're a solicitor.
Yeah, there's literally in the name.
Yeah.
But, you know, the interesting thing, when it comes to the money, so it's roughly going to be about 30 billion it's going to cost us. We were
Was it
looking
90 billion over the 100
well, over the year
years?
period,
It'd be
but
more
when
than
we're
that.
looking at it, the GDP of Mauritius is only $40 billion dollars as it is already. So we're basically going to double their GDP. Like,
And
yet we think it's going to be
interesting that
perfectly
last
fine.
week they signed a deal to have closer diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. Because, of course, as I've always said, the real reason for this, and people are confused by the Chagos Islands, in order to prevent a war in Taiwan, what the Americans will do is that they will cut off the oil supply. There are two ways of cutting off the oil supply. Number one, to cut it off at Uyghur, which is why the Uyghurs are all in prison. And the other way is to stop it being sailed from the Middle East over through India, past India. And effectively, it's the Chagos Islands that will stop that. So I guarantee you that if you give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, they will give it to China, and China will use it to ensure they can invade Taiwan, which brings World War III a step closer.
I think you're right
It doesn't bring international justice a step closer.
No, I think you're right there, but there is an interesting point that I've just thought about from what you've raised. Can't help but notice that this government sides awfully common with China. Every single decision.
Like their embassy.
Their embassy, literally across
Whereas
the river.
Westminster, both bipartisan, are against it. The police in Westminster are against it. But David Lammy, Angela Ray, they're all for it.
I've said this publicly on this show. If we didn't realise that David Lammy was a moron, I would suspect him of being a Chinese agent.
Yeah.
Because the things
Well, he
that
might be one, he just doesn't know he's one.
Yeah, that's right. The things he is doing can be explained by one of two things. Either abject stupidity or being in hock to China.
Yeah, but again...
Because he's doing things that are against Britain's national interest. I mean, Tower Hamlets Council rejected the super embassy, which is, by the way, just a spy headquarters.
Yes, it is.
Well, basically, they use them around the world. They found one in Holland. I think we've got them here. They're basically Chinese police stations, and they grab you, take people in there, and do their own punishments on. This was discovered, and this is what they'll do with this super embassy.
Not to get too nerdy into it, but there was a thing that was going through Parliament about how MPs had to declare their interactions with foreign nationals.
Oh, right.
And that had been quietly suppressed by the government, and it was at the time that a lot of this kind of China rhetoric was around. Now, it's still yet to be confirmed that MPs have to declare the same way they declare their expenses, who they've met, and a lot of people, particularly in the kind of Foreign Affairs Select Committee, are pushing really hard for the government to explain why they're not ratifying, why they're not pushing for this. And it seems to be that there's a lot of MPs meeting a lot of people.
Well, remember Tony Blair covering the protesters, the Tibet protesters, by putting a line of police to protect them, and then you had Cameron and his Chancellor as well. It was all very nefarious dealings with this.
We need to get a grip on China, because it's not an ally, it's not a friend, and it's about time we started treating them like the enemy that they are.
Yeah, they are an enemy. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Anyway, what have we got?
Dog in a manger. Pets take the place of children. We're all buying dogs because we can't have children. Can't afford them.
No. We have to. What we have to do, for those of you that don't have a house, what you have to do is buy one house for yourself and one for a migrant family. That's
and
what it
then
does.
get a dog to feel a bit better.
And then you go. Bluntly, I can't afford to have children because I've got to pay for the migrant family next door to have 6.
Yeah. You know, this is the thing. We look at all these migration studies and all the statistics, but yet the number one problem this country faces is a declining birth rate.
Yes.
So that is the real problem.
We don't need kids anymore. Have you seen the latest robots? No one's going to need kids. They do everything, this new Tesla robot. Doctors threaten to go back on strike after inadequate pay rise. Greedy doctors. Doctors have threatened to go back on strike.
Do people, Pete, you're a political strategist. Do people like the NHS after COVID?
No.
I don't think they did.
Even at the time, I refused to bang my pants.
And I tell you now, the trade unions who represent a lot of the nurses, the doctors, have done nothing to enamour themselves with the general public. You know, people felt that they sacrificed for the NHS, and now they're looking at these doctors and nurses who are on these inflation-busting pay rises, and yet they don't seem to be satisfied. It's
They already had a massive one a few months ago.
Yeah, because that's the point. You know, they're asking for more and more and more. And people are like, oh, it's a nurse, it's a doctor, it's a nurse. And
I don't think people are like that.
Is good.
Don't people respect the nurses? I think they're on the nurses' side more, very much so.
It's always nurses over doctors.
Because they get
always
crapped on, don't they, the nurses? They don't get the pay rise, whereas doctors...
The problem is with the NHS, some people are unbelievably overpaid GPs, and some people are unbelievably underpaid hospital nurses.
Yeah.
GPs, I tell you what, it's soul-destroying to see people with that level of medical treatment, level of medical training, dishing out aspirin to 5-year-olds. They should be in the bloody hospitals where they're actually needed.
Yeah, but also I would go back to the point that the GPs need to be a lot more local, and we need more access to GPs.
Yeah, it's a different GP every time I go there. And in the 70s, you used to have the guy that knew you, or the woman that knew you.
What about
the whole
call-out?
family.
Call-out, that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen anymore. Don't, no, they don't get
trying to
paid.
get hold of a GP after 5 o'clock. Good luck.
Apparently, there's loads of doctors can't find the work now, so they're not employing enough doctors, and they're not qualifying.
Well, the one that makes me laugh is when you phone up and you go, hello, I'd like a doctor's appointment. What's wrong with you? Well,
don't get me started on that.
What's your problem, love?
But also, why do we not have a deal that if you come to this country to study medicine, which a lot of people do, why don't we say, well, we'll give you a discount if you do 5 years in the NHS? Why is that not a thing?
Well, a lot of them have got fake bloody degrees from abroad, and they've found out there was a study that found a lot of these people aren't even qualified.
Oh, there's loads of them.
There's loads of them.
Well, it's so
right, let's have
dangerous.
a look. Princess Catherine's been out and about. She's at BAE Systems shipyard. Well, she's looking well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. I mean, that is like a 1930s class, picture, isn't it? She looks like a film star.
I mean, let's be clear. She doesn't look like she's eaten since about 2003.
But the thing about that really annoys me about her is that she makes that look so effortless. Do you know what I mean? Like she just looks like she just rolled out of bed and just looks like that.
Yeah.
I think I like her. I'll tell you why. Because she knows what her job is. No doubt, back at home, it's an equal partnership. But out in public, she does the baby kissing. She smiles and waves.
Yeah, she gets it.
She's very popular, isn't she?
Yeah, she's very popular.
Daily Mail, Labour to release rapists and killers earlier. Great news. Labour is set to free killers and rapists from jail earlier under the new Soft Justice Master Plan. The government sentencing review was last night savaged by victims and senior police officers, while Tories dubbed it a recipe for a crime wave.
Look, this is a conspiracy theory that we get a lot, Pete, which is they need to make room for the political prisoners.
That's what it says, Justice Secretary
Is that
Shabana Mahmood,
completely unfair?
who commissioned the review to free up space.
I think that is unfair. It's literally to free up space. We just don't have the space.
Yeah, but if you're a political prisoner, they'll get you in within the next day.
The amount that we've got to release compared to the amount of people that are in prison for political reasons.
Well, there's hundreds of them. There's a few a lot more than the Russians do.
Yeah. So that's okay. So that is people who have been charged, not necessarily people who are in prison for it.
No, but there are still quite a few in prison.
Yeah, but not compared to the number of people that we need the space to put in prison.
The puberty blockers, admit it was from yesterday's front pages, the puberty blockers, or rather chemical castration, it's not going to happen, is it?
No, so basically the story is it's just a study. It's not a kind of nationwide. Shabana Mahmood has expanded it to cover 20 prisons over the 3 originally, but that's it. You know, there's people run away with that story quite a lot, but I don't really see it as a kind of long-term solution or like a long-term policy.
I think it's a great solution. The problem is it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, so solution's not the right way. A long-term kind of policy.
We'll be back with the press. Oh, do you want to go out to the break? Go on.
All right, I'll have a go.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah, this is the press preview with me, Andre Walker and Peter Barnes. Don't forget, Kev is going to be in for Mike Graham after 6 if you're listening in the morning. This is Talk. Give us a ring, 03444991000. Inside the race to sell fat jabs in pill form as soon as next year. More about that after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, in fact, this is Talk, and this is Andre Walker, Asher Gould, and Pete Barnes for the press preview. Pete, just remind us about your new show.
Yes, so I'm
launching soon.
Yes, so Tuesday it all goes live. It's called Breaking Embargo. I sit down with a top guest to discuss not just what's going wrong in the country, but more importantly how we fix it. It's a solutions-based program. It's about half an hour, 20 minutes per episode. I've got people like Alex Phillips, Ben Habib. I'm sitting down with Dr. Roger Gewolb, loads of people that people will recognise, and a few other faces and voices that I think we need to be hearing from.
That's Breaking Umbungo with Pete Barnes.
Now, at the moment, there's nothing on the YouTube channel, but if you go to it, it's Peter Barnes. It's just Peter Barnes. It literally is Peter Barnes.
Yeah.
No, he's done well getting that. So what's
like
next?
I do it for a living.
Right, the Daily Telegraph, 30 billion cost of Chagas surrender. Starmer accused of misleading the public with dodgy accounting and Mauritius deal. Sir Keir Starmer's deal to give away the Chagas Islands will cost the UK up to 30 billion. I think they're also giving them 25 million a year for just, administrative
For fun,
costs.
it seems to be.
25, yeah, they're just giving it away.
We're just going to get cut out of this deal, aren't we? It's just going to be America and Mauritius.
Nothing to do with us,
Essentially, that's. But yeah, we're under Keir Starmer. The Britain is an irrelevancy. Yeah. That's the reality of it. We're irrelevant under that man.
Rayner wants to strip middle-class families of child benefit. Angela Rayner, no-brainer, urged Rachel Reeves to strip middle-class families of child benefit payments. The Telegraph reveals the Deputy PM pressed the Treasury to claw back the benefit from households where the highest earner's salary was between 50 and 80 grand. That would reverse an announcement by the Tories in March 24. That was predicted to save 500,000 families. And she's really sort of having a go, really, with Rachel Reeves, isn't she?
Yeah,
She said something else today that was sort of what was she suggesting today? Something against Rachel Reeves, anyway, it'll come but something. Sex criminals face chemical castration. Sex offenders face mandatory chemical castration. It could be sectioned if they refuse under the biggest shake-up of sentencing for 30 years. Shabana Mahmood, Justice Secretary, said that 20 prisons would test voluntary chemical castration using drugs to suppress sexual urges. Well, I've heard this sort of doesn't work because it doesn't get rid of your urges.
Yeah, it's about 60% effective rate, apparently.
And apparently, if you drink alcohol, it can get rid of the effects of it. I mean, it sounds a load of bunkum. Jailed mother helped my family stay in the UK. The mother of jailed over a tweet she posted in the wake of the Southport murder, sponsored a Nigerian family to help them get British citizenship. And we've heard from because she ran a nursery or a creche or something. She didn't. All these families, there was African families, all from Asian, and they all the parents came and said, "There's no way she's racist. She's obviously not racist." I mean, Starmer branded all the Southport people far right. It came out that was a lie from that police report. He also said they were bussed and trained in, and they weren't. They were all from the local area. Absolute disgrace. He hasn't apologised, of course. Starmer blamed after Israel embassy killings. An Israeli minister accused Sir Keir Starmer of emboldening the forces of terror. Well, I saw Netanyahu saying that as well. After 2 staff members at his country's embassy in Washington DC were killed by a lone gunman.
But you're talking about Connolly. Lucy Connolly. Nobody cares about this incitement. Nobody cares about James O'Brien, who is widely accepted from LBC to be the person responsible for all the jihadis wanting to kill Nigel Farage.
Well, he called it the Farage riots, didn't he?
The cost of securing Farage. Have you seen him recently? He virtually goes around the tank. Yeah. It's costing millions. Yeah, and this is a man, by the way, before people have a go at Farage, who refused police protection for years and did it through the private sector. Millions.
And what does it tell you now that he said, I need that protection? And just the ramping up of the rhetoric that is coming out of people like James O'Brien. I look at Sheila Fogarty, also at LBC, and her kind of downplaying of Donald Trump getting shot. And
who's that one that looks like grot bags? She's awful as well. Marion Margoyles.
Yeah. Again, the left and these kind of progressives, I hate that term because they are not in any way, shape or form, the way they downplay political violence against right-wing figures or people that they perceive to be as a far right is absolutely disgraceful.
But their attitude, Pete, is this, and this is why the left, if they're allowed to run riots, always end up locking people up and political prisoners and all these, gas chambers and all this sort of stuff that various types of political left have done. By the way, Nazis are political lefties. There's no doubt about that, in my view. It's because they go, yeah, but these lot are evil. I know we're supposed to play fair, but, you know, these people are evil. We have to, you know, we have to be
But they've got blood
intolerant
on their
of them.
hands. I mean, look, when that hospital, which, you know, there was that missile that actually came from Islamic Jihad, and they said, within 10 minutes it killed 500 people, which was rubbish. There were riots against, you know, Jews and Israel and calling them Zionists. And then this is exactly what they're saying about these two murdered in Washington. After the guy did it, he was shouting, Palestine will be free. He was one of those protesters. There were pictures of him. So all these people on Saturdays in this country are being riled up, and it only takes one of them to do it, and that's why Starmer and Lammy and all that lot have blood on their hands, not just for that, also for the everything they get.
But then
blood on
I
their
also
hands.
looked at people like Sir Mark Rowley, who said that the phrase, you know, when they said about the comparison of Nazis and Jews, for example, with Israel, it needs context. It needed that level.
And jihad doesn't necessarily mean it could be just a spiritual awakening.
If you're shouting from the river to the sea, I'm sorry, you're calling for the extinction and extermination. I'm sorry, there is no nuance.
I remember when
you're just an
when
idiot.
He said intifada everywhere as he was being arrested, which is one of the tropes. I mean, he's obviously one of these marchers.
It's extraordinary, but of course the unbelievable thing, Pete, is and there was a fundamental misunderstanding, and I think the Zionists and the pro-Israeli cause were completely wrong about this. You look openly Jewish. The purpose of arresting somebody in those circumstances is to de-arrest them later and basically take them out of harm's way.
Yeah, there's also no such thing as de-arresting. By the way, it's not a thing. And people use that phrase, but basically what it is the police overstepped. They were wrong.
No, I disagree with that. What they're effectively doing is they're saying, look, to avoid a public order, we're going to remove you. Right?
Well, they should shut down the protests if they're a danger.
That's right.
Not tell the Jews not to look Jewish.
But the critical point was this. What they do is they say, right, there is a risk to your life wearing a skull cap near these people. Right. Got it.
Well, therefore, it's a violent protest.
Hang on a second. So what we do is now we go, if you continue to stand here in the skull cap, you're going to get lynched. Got it. Therefore, if you do not move voluntarily, we will move you. Got it. So I understand all that bit. What I don't understand is a week later, a Jew would have been lynched on the street. Nobody does anything. Because we've dealt with the immediate problem. I understand that. We haven't dealt with the problem of what are we now going to do about the fact these people are dangerous.
Exactly. By that situation alone, you have just admitted that
you've
admitted
that you know it's a violent process,
and that you are choosing to allow it to happen. That you are choosing to put people in physical harm way, and that's what that situation.
Also, the other thing about these protests is every week, forever. I mean, it's like that.
It's never been like that before with anything else.
Like that Brian Hall where he moved in, all the people.
Oh, no.
Do you remember the Occupy movement where they got into outside? What was it? Outside St Paul's Cathedral. Was it St Paul's? Yeah, it was outside St Paul's Cathedral, and they said, "Look, they just moved in."
Yeah.
Like,
Manchester's like that.
We're having a peace camp.
Yeah. I know, it's terrible. Like,
you have your protest, you turn up, you shout, you put your placards up, and you go home.
Yeah,
you don't stay there forever.
The worst bit now, I noticed this under Just Stop Oil, who are threatening to come back, is they then hop on the internet and say, "Can you please help me fundraise to cover the legal bills and all the rest of it?"
Yeah.
It used to be a thing in this country that you took the rap on the knuckles. The point of a political protest is that you don't that you take the punishment.
Yeah, that's right.
And
like Gandhi.
Yeah,
for the cause.
You do it for the cause. This lot, no, absolutely not.
I mean, and also you can't. Other people can't protest. And I'll tell you something. Somebody standing with a megaphone outside a butcher's for 4 months, 9 to 5, Monday to Sunday. That is not a protest.
It's not a protest.
That's just harassment.
Yes, it is.
And the Matt cartoon there, it's got a driver being pulled over, and he says, "Don't make me do another speed awareness course. Can I choose chemical castration instead?" Welsh Labour has spent £250,000 counting moths. The Labour-run Welsh Government has come under attack for spending £250,000 on a project to count moths. But that's nothing. We've got a £100 million bat tunnel, haven't we?
Oh, we do, yeah.
The 2-year scheme, called Cryptic Creatures of Cruden, will survey the moth population living on the Cruden Peninsula in the north of the country. The Welsh Government said the initiative would help protect rare and at-risk... I hate moths. I'm a bit terrified when I don't like the way they flap around and there's dust on them.
I tell you now...
What's all that dust?
Yeah, that's always the dust thing.
But
I tell you now, the thing you've got to watch with Reform, they will take over the Senate elections. They will dominate it.
And they'll get rid of the moth counting.
They will dominate.
There won't be any moth counting
and it will
there.
be purely because of policies like that. What
exactly.
a waste of money.
No, I'm keen. I'm keen on the Farage Welsh government.
Yeah.
I know. Moths are not popular with you lot.
Tax rises are inevitable after bumper pay deals. Tax rises are inevitable after Keir Starmer unveiled £7 billion.
Can we afford it anymore?
Bustling. Well, no, of course
I don't think. We
never could.
Do you know anybody rich anymore?
Not really. Most of them don't live in this country.
It puts you off making any money because what's the point? I'm going to give over 50%.
You've got people living in London earning 80 grand a year who are broke.
Yeah.
You need at least a kid now who comes from uni needs to earn about 100 grand in it, and then it won't be that good a life because you've got to spend 25 grand on your accommodation. Then you get taxed 50 grand, and leaves you 25 grand to live, which isn't really enough to have a good time at two. So you need at least 100 grand.
10 quid a pint.
Yeah.
10 quid a pint. The Guardian.
Well, I think this is interesting. Harvard won't be allowed to take international students anymore.
Yeah, this one's been grumbling on in the background in America for some time, and I tell you now, if that policy comes over here, to watch universities close its doors.
So what has happened?
Yeah.
What has happened is this: Harvard are causing problems related to Israel. There's all sorts of violence and whatever, and they are not handing over the information on the students to Homeland Security. And so the Homeland Security have said, if you cannot be trusted to have international students will be banned at your institution.
Well, they had the DEI head of Harvard, who was anti-Semitic like the others. Remember that?
Yeah.
What's the context of the anti-Semitism? And all this stuff. Unbelievable. And so Trump's right.
Okay, I just want to.
She was a plagiarist and thick.
If you're watching on Friday morning, I want to thank you for watching. This is a press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Pete Barnes. If you are watching on Friday morning or listening, then we're going to have Kevin O'Sullivan up next because Mike Graham is off, no doubt scoffing his face or doing something equally offensive. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to get in touch with Kevin. And, of course, if you're here on Thursday nights, then we want to thank Pete Barnes profusely. Yeah. What else have we got that we want to talk about? There's nothing else, is there?
Break and Bungo. That's Pete's new site, Break and Bargo.
But I did want to show you this, the Chaos Islands.
That's quite clever.
The G turns it into Chaos Islands. OK, so make sure you subscribe to Pete. It's Peter Barnes on YouTube. There's nothing there yet, but he's coming up rather soon. And we're going to get our calls in 0344 499 1000. We'd love to continue the phone conversation we were having before about whether we should be castrating rapists and sex offenders and whether we can do it and whether we are doing enough to support young women who are victims of all the things that are going on in northern England and, of course, across all of these grooming gang places. But, of course, the Chagos Islands, you can talk about that. 30 billion to lease back a piece of property you already own. It's such a good deal that it could almost be a property deal in London. We will be back just in a couple of moments.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and someone's brought in some donuts, so I'm going to consume a donut whilst we talk
Have
about...
half a donut. They are the American vulgar ones. They're not British donuts. That's...
Don't show the logo.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, they're worth eating.
They're
Don't
not
worry
as
about
good.
that.
They're not as good as the British ones.
They're a bit rich, aren't they? American food's always rich. They always have to overdo it, don't they?
I like the fried ones that you used to get in the fairground.
The what?
The
yeah, the deep fried ones. That's the best
Absolutely.
ones.
OK. Yeah. Derbyshire County Council's new Reform UK leadership have scrapped the authority's Climate Change Committee. It's unbelievable. Alex Dale from the Conservatives has said the move is short-sighted. Also, Giz Kinsella. Right, I think it is called Giz Kinsella, who's the leader of the Greens, has warned that scrapping the committee jeopardises the council's legal responsibilities on biodiversity and could undermine efforts to deliver cheaper, cleaner energy and improve housing for the most vulnerable. Now, we're joined by Lois Perry, director of the Heartland Institute. Lois, just let me ask you this question, because I'm slightly confused. Why is it, if green energy is so cheap, why does every time we implement green energy, the price of energy goes up?
Yeah.
Well, because as you and I know, and we've discussed this on a number of occasions, obviously green energy doesn't exist and is not cheaper. It's heavily reliant on subsidies and is actually dangerous. I don't know if you've heard today about St Michael's Hospital in Bristol. The roof caught light, and that was because the solar panels had caught light.
Well, Heathrow Airport, they're saying all that problem was to do with the green. And what happened in Spain and Portugal, this is all problems being caused by this renewable rubbish.
Well, it's no surprise that the House of Commons will not allow electric vehicles to be parked in their under the ground parking.
Yeah, and you try and get house insurance with an electric car.
Can't you?
No,
well, it makes it more expensive because you might burn. If you park it in the driver garage, there's a good chance. There's much more chance your house is going to burn down. You can't put these things out. Brent Cross the other day, there was a fire that they couldn't put out. It burned about 5 cars in the end.
Well, let me ask about.
Anything happens at Brent Cross.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Let me ask you about Councillor Kinsella, who, to be fair, I know you haven't met and don't know a great deal about. But Councillor Kinsella does make a point from the Greens at Derbyshire County Council. That, Giz or Jizz, don't know what her name is.
I prefer Jizz.
But what she has said, presumably it's a she as well, she said that this may make Derbyshire County Council in breach of the law. Now, one thing that we do know, Lois, is whilst people are voting against uncontrolled immigration, voting against crazy green things, voting against the Chagos Island deal, voting against the abolition of the winter fuel payment, voting against net zero. Even though we're voting against these things, very often we're electing to authorities where it is literally illegal for them to do what the public want.
Well, no, that's absolutely correct. And we do have it enshrined in law that we reach certain targets by 2050 and indeed 2030. So you're absolutely right. But what people are doing by voting for reform and voting for anti-net zero policies is they're sending a very clear message that what they want is a government that will be anti-net zero. So, reform will have these individual fights, and this will be their opportunity to show the public, the British public, how they would run the country by how they're running the councils. And I'm never one to blow my own trumpet, but I will, because it's the Heartland's trumpet. But Nigel Farage and the Reform Party have credited the Heartland and me and my campaigning work with being the reason that they have adopted anti-net zero policies. So I'm very proud of that.
What will happen?
Can I just tell you a little bit?
Sorry, I was just going to ask you what happens next, because I was on the train today and more farmland is being taken up by
corporations, big corporations.
No, by all these power stations that are using sunlight,
right,
all these
solar panels
and all that sort of thing, and that does worry me. Are we able to turn this juggernaut round?
Yeah, absolutely. If we abolish net zero policies, we will immediately find that our energy is extremely cheap. I mean, if you look at New Zealand, I mean, you can't think of a more country than New Zealand, especially under Jacinda Ardern. But just today, they've announced that they are abolishing their net zero targets, and they are lifting their ban on drilling for oil and gas.
Drill, baby, drill.
So, drill, baby, drill. So if Reform get in and do the same thing, then indeed we'll be fracking and we will have our own cheap energy.
Yeah.
It will take a while to get going, but so what? You know, it is very, very, very doable.
We've got these
Just
Rolls-Royce small nuclear stations. I mean, that's our own company. It's not the Rolls-Royce that's owned by the Germans. It's the British one that's the still British part of Rolls-Royce that have got...
Well, absolutely. But, you know, Andrew Montfort did a tweet today where he broke down and showed everybody that 40% of our energy bills are directly green taxes, directly.
And it's owned by French companies. We're subsidising the French public, our public. That's why they have the lowest bills in Europe. And we've got the highest because we're paying their bills.
Well, that takes me quite neatly into something quite exciting that I'm doing for the...
You're meeting Giorgia Meloni, aren't you, the Italian premier, next week?
Well, I'm taking a small delegation with me. We're flying to Poland on Monday. Then we're going to Hungary, and then we're going to be coming briefly, and then because I've got an event, a couple of events in London, and then we're going to Rome. But the whole concept is about building a transatlantic coalition, because the Heartland Institute is originally an American institution. It still is, obviously, a 40 years standing, and we're the UK and Europe wing. And with all the elections that are happening in Poland and Hungary, and Meloni being very anti-net zero, there's a real opportunity here for us to build a broad transatlantic coalition, an anti-net zero coalition. And yeah, I'm really excited, actually.
Because it's all
really
shifting. It's like pivoting, isn't it? Since Trump got in, woker is pivoting, the trans thing's pivoting, and it's all sort of linked, isn't it? This is the next thing that's pivoting.
Well, yeah, I feel like the Americans feel like, you know, not like it's job done. It's never job done. You must never sit on your laurels. But they're excited about what we're doing in the Heartland UK and Europe, because they've got Trump. We obviously have still got a big fight on our hands, you know, but I'm very much looking forward to meeting all the senior politicians from all the different parties and seeing what I can do.
And what's the feeling you're getting with all the politicians? Do you feel it's all changing?
Well, yeah, I'm going to look at a piece of paper now, and you must forgive me just because of a pronunciation. But
no, I'm sorry, Lois. You've got to do the Polish names without looking at your crib sheet. No, I'm joking. Don't do that.
In the presidential election with Karol Nawacki, he opposes the Green New Deal.
Karol Nawacki?
Yeah. And Viktor Orban opposes the Green Deal. Meloni opposes the Green Deal. I mean, this is something that the EU is literally trying to shove down.
That's what I was about to ask, because obviously a lot of this, and I found this, and I don't quite understand the connection, but there definitely is one. Obviously, the people that love the EU love the whole climate change religion. I do say it's a religion.
Yeah, they do.
But they also like the mandatory vaccinations and lockdowns and all this. Are they just authoritarians? And if so, what is the role of the EU?
Well, quite. I mean, well, for me, and I think it became increasingly apparent, even for people that initially supported the European Union, like my granddad did, you know, when the big vote happened, I think it was in the 70s.
That wasn't the European, that was a trade agreement. That was sensible.
That's right. It was a trade agreement.
We were conned into it.
Exactly. I think even their most ardent supporters previously would now agree that it's a globalist, if not Marxist, organisation with a globalist Marxist
and it's not democratic.
agenda.
It's not democratic. You can't vote out a president. I mean, I think it was Alex or Belinda DeLucy. One of them was telling me, I think it was Alex, when she was an MEP and they had the vote for, von der Leyen. She was the only name on the ballot form. I mean, even Saddam Hussein and Putin pretend there's someone else.
100%,
They didn't even...
100%.
And they can't file their accounts every year. You know, they're always, we'll just forget about that and just go to the next year. That's every year. There's so much fraud going on. And there's hundreds of millions. Remember, they found suitcases with millions of pounds in with a lot of these. And some of them are still in position in the EU.
Absolutely. I mean, when I went to Strasbourg, the place, I mean, it probably made Versailles. I've never been to Versailles, but I can imagine that in its that Strasbourg, the Parliament, which I believe was only used for not even full time, would make Versailles look like a peasant's hut. The amount of money in that place, they've got no interest.
I remember when I worked at the European Parliament, I remember going to, I was told to report to floor E, to building E, floor 13. So I always remember thinking, well, if there's a tower E, floor 13, then there must be at least an A tower with 13 floors, a B tower with C, D, and E, and maybe more. Apparently, I think there was GH and whatever, I. But I remember when I worked there, and 13 wasn't the top floor, but I assumed there must have been at least that tall. But anyway, I remember once they delivered a pallet full of stuff, and when I opened it, inside was something simply extraordinary. It was
a blow-up doll.
It was leather footballs, so they were blow-up. Yep. There was cufflinks, silk ties, leather footballs, all this sort of stuff in there, all marked with the EPP logo, European People's Party. I said, "What is this?" And the delivery guy said that the European People's Party had to spend $2 million on promotional items by the end of the month to retain their budget. Now, I don't know how long they hadn't spent the $2 million for, but I just collected maybe 50 silk ties, which were worth, I don't know, £20 each or something like that.
Still got any?
Gave them to them.
Did you pick out the embroidery?
No, that was the extraordinary thing about it. The only thing the silk ties had was a label that said EPP inside. They were plain. They were just normal designs that you get.
Nice. But again, that goes back to what you were saying before about that had to spend a certain amount of money. You know, you're talking about Derbyshire County Council. It may be that they have certain allocation of budget that they have to spend on, whether it's diversity or climate change. But these are the things that the Reform Party will be highlighting, I should imagine.
How are the Reform Party getting on? Do we know? Because they're very new into local government. They've gone from maybe 15 councillors to about 800.
But they've banned foreign flags on their buildings, haven't they, and stuff like that. Is that coming into fruition, all these... and they want to ban migrants or immigrants from their areas as well. I mean, is that going to...
I don't know if there's any migrants on the flags, but no, I'm joking. As far as I'm aware from my contacts and from speaking to people, it's all going very well. And going back to what you were saying previously before I came on, they are very much on set to win and to have a First Minister in Wales, which will be extraordinary. I don't know if you know, but Wales is one of the only countries in the Western world, or indeed, big parts of the other parts of the world as well, where you can ring for an ambulance and they will actually say, look, you've got the ambulance and it probably will come, but it's probably worth getting yourself to the hospital if you can.
Well, it's like that in England as well. I mean, and I'm sure Scotland probably.
Yeah, but in Wales, they will tell. But here they will tell you that an ambulance will come.
Because the 20 mile an hour
speed limit. They tell you it will probably come.
Yeah, well, but I mean, you'll be dead in England. It takes 10 hours. Old ladies falling on the floor, 80 years old, and they can't get. And then they're queuing up outside A&E. But.
All right. Yeah. Well, I was gonna leave it there and say thank you, Lois.
Well, what have you got? Anything to announce? Anything going on with the Heartlands? You got some events? You got some events, or are they for the public or not? What's going on with your Heartlands Institute?
I do have an event, but it's for the media, and that's next month. But I don't necessarily want to draw attention to it. Don't want.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Lois. Good luck with your trip, and we will see you very soon. That's Lois Perry, who is the European Director of the Heartland Institute. We'll be back taking your calls, which is 0344 499 1000. Just in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and this is the late night phone in. Let's just call it that. 03444991000. Let's go straight to Stephen in Manchester. Stephen, you're on Talk.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm good.
All right, kid.
How you doing, kid?
All right, mate. I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
What about United, Stephen? What's going on with United?
God, man, what happened yesterday?
Well, you haven't. Apparently, you're going to have to sell all your players because you're skint with £100 million hole, which isn't that much in the old days. But you've got to sell all your big stars.
How did this happen, Ash?
Well, I think mismanagement, isn't it? Mismanagement was when Fergie left. It all fell apart.
You lived in Manchester during the heyday, didn't you?
I did. That's right. Yeah, from in the early 90s.
And Andre, he's like a posh scouser from Wigan who eats pies, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah, very posh pies.
I don't know how that happened yesterday. I didn't watch the match. I listened.
See, we can do what Talk Sports can do and Talk Normal Talk. Carry on, Steve.
I listened to the match with an 87-year-old boy called Georgie.
An 87-year-old boy?
Yeah.
What was he like? He was like sort of physically young.
With a cap and shorts on.
But chronologically old.
And Andre's having a go at me now because I've had a go at him, and because he's like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
pie in Wigan.
He said he eats posh pies.
Yeah. Andre, shut up.
Yeah,
I'm talking to Ash anyway. So,
with your prawn sandwich pies.
How's James, by the way?
Well, he's hopefully going to be in tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but you know, he should be in. He's doing all right, you know.
Yeah, he's so much better than the guy that's covering tonight, isn't it?
Why don't we just?
You've hurt his feet.
Do you know what? Just tell him to sod off. Right, I've had enough of you. Get lost. Rick is in Portsmouth. Rick, you're on Talk.
It was a bit hurtful.
Hello, fella.
I can't be bothered with dickheads like that. Rick, go for it.
Hello, fella. How's it going?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Same old, really.
What's going on in Pompey?
I've been told lots of illegal immigrants walking all over the place. They're like scaring people. There's actually there's I don't know if I can say it on the station now, but basically a little while ago I was told by a friend of a friend who works at the Guildhall, the place where, you know, like the town hall sort of thing.
Yeah.
A friend of a friend told me that basically
come on, spill the beans.
Yeah, there's a load of illegal immigrants heard that they were able to get money for cars. So they went there and they said, well, what do you mean cars? And they said, well, we'll give you money for the cars. And they gave them checks. So they got £6,000 each for cars, checks. And they came back and they said, well, sorry, we haven't got any bank accounts. They actually gave them £6,000 cash. And so they walked out with suitcases full of money.
Wow.
Must have been a small suitcase, like.
Wow.
But it was like Sadiq Khan when he was giving away free bicycles to migrants.
And tennis lessons, driving lessons. I mean, these are people who not necessarily going to get citizenship, although they probably will. But I mean, why are you giving?
Good luck with that one.
Yeah. Why are they giving them driving lessons and tennis? Well, tennis lessons.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy.
We all need tennis lessons.
No, we don't.
Is that what you called in about, Rick, or what else?
No, it's actually a panorama about 20 years ago, maybe a bit longer ago.
Yeah.
Basically, did you?
When it was good.
Did you see the one about the Indian bus drivers?
No. Tell us about that.
But basically, the Indian bus drivers.
Okay. No, we don't. We don't. I can't remember that. We can't sort of make these allegations, but anyway. Morning. We've got. Someone says I've got a short video of Tony Benn in Parliament stating, "If you cannot remove those who govern you, then you don't live in a democracy." Is there a way to send the fifth? Right, that's interesting. He was right. Although Tony Benn, everyone, all the lefties admire him, but when he died, he made sure his inheritance tax was covered, so he didn't have to pay it. Anyway, let's go. Let's make sense of anything and get a sermon. And please everyone say hallelujah. It's Ken in London. Ken. Morning, Ken.
Good morning, gentlemen, and good morning, everyone. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Listen, I would like to talk about this very extreme situation of the need of chemical castration for paedophiles.
Yeah, go for it.
And the government are thinking of partially castrating them, maybe maximum to 60%. This is nonsense, in my opinion. And do you know in the world that the devilish sexual sin is now normalized?
Yeah, well,
Nations have been taken over by Satan. This is serious business for the world. And if we want to find out what God thinks about this paedophilia, let me read what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 18, verses 6 and 7.
Okay.
Did he say, I'm quite keen? No.
This is the word of God. Whoever causes one of these little ones to sin, it will be better for him if a millstone was hung around his neck and he was drowned in the depth of the sea.
Sorry, he's victim blaming. He said whoever causes the little ones to sin, they can't be sinning. That's like the police saying these were prostitutes.
When a young child is sexually abused, it affects his whole life.
Well, yeah. Of course it does.
Affects his whole life. The rest of his life is dramatically affected.
Well, of course it is. I mean, that's what happened with these girls up north and all over the country.
Listen, this is what God is saying here. God passes the death sentence on those who would offend children. This is serious business.
Well, quite
in my opinion, all proven beyond doubt pedophiles should be physically castrated in jail for 10 years.
Well, hold on. Jesus said they should have the death penalty, so why aren't you going along with Jesus?
Well, I agree with that, but I'm just saying that from a Christian viewpoint. The person should be given a chance to repent and get right with God. And in Muslim countries right now, pedophilia is accepted. Underage marriage, kids of 10 years, girls of 10-year-old.
Yeah, and I know it happens, and it's
the age of consent in Saudi Arabia is 9, although you do have to be married to the girl.
Now think about that, because that's it. Muhammad, he was married to a 9-year-old girl, Alicia. Muhammad, he set the example. Alicia was 8 or 9 years old when she got married to Muhammad.
She was called Aisha, not Alicia.
And another thing, and this is just in my opinion here, that this is serious. Anyone who, beyond a shadow of a doubt, knows of paedophile activity, including all religious leaders, every one of them should be sentenced to jail.
Yes.
For covering it up, especially religious leaders.
Of course they should be. If they're paedophile, of course they should be.
Straight to jail.
No one's going to argue with that.
What about
unless they work at the BBC?
What about my idea? What about my idea, Ken? Which is any police officer or any social worker who is part of a grooming gang. Now, let me explain this thing called joint enterprise. I actually got the term for it right before. Basically, my argument is that somebody like Sadiq Khan, who is determined to say that grooming gangs don't exist, is effectively enabling those grooming gangs. Now, he's not particularly bad, and I wouldn't jail Sadiq Khan, but I think a lot of police officers and social workers, those ones that have conspired to hide this, I think that they should be considered part of the gang, and to be part of a grooming gang, if you are a police officer or a social worker, you get the death penalty.
Certainly, we totally agree with that, Andre, but Khan himself should be jailed. This man knows what's happening and he keeps silent. He's like these religious leaders who protect priests, for example, for sexual abuse. Khan's protecting these Muslim rapists and sexual abusers.
Why do you think he's doing it? Because, I mean, look, I find it extraordinary. So, look, first of all, there was a grooming gang case in Stratford. So the fact that Khan says it doesn't exist, it has literally happened in the city he represents. I don't understand why he's turns a blind eye to it in the way he does.
Well, you know what God's saying to us, to the world, Andre and I. This is
the same reason all the other Labour lot have turned a blind eye to it.
Because it's difficult politically.
God is saying to the world, if you don't want my son, the Messiah, Jesus, you can have Islam. That's what he's saying to England.
Many people are very happy to have Islam.
Listen, we are in big trouble in this country. The fear of Islam is so detrimental. It brings shame upon us.
It will be illegal to say that soon, won't it, with the Islamophobia laws that they want to bring in?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to bring in. And this man, Stammer, he's supporting it. All those.
It will be illegal to fear these tenets of some Islamists. It will be illegal to fear.
Will you, when it's illegal to criticise Islam, will you continue to criticise Islam?
We'll continue to preach the word of God. We don't specify any particular people. We're all sinners. I am a sinner. We're all guilty. We just preach we're all sinners and we need to repent and believe in Jesus to escape the fires of hell. Listen, I call this radio station up many, many times, and I want to assure you, friends, I am speaking with love and concern in my heart, not in judgment upon anybody. But Jesus was a straight talker, and a genuine Christian must be a straight, genuine talker and tell the truth and speak the truth in love, because we don't want souls to go to hell. We want them to repent and believe in Jesus and get to heaven, and that's what God wants. But pride is the problem. God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace.
Well, there's a problem. There's a problem with pride in Christianity, isn't there? Because there's a kind of positive pride and negative pride. If you're proud of your child for an achievement, that's a different sort of pride to being proud of your new car.
And the meek will inherit the earth. And Keir Starmer is quite meek, isn't he?
Well, you know, one of the greatest signs of pride, self-righteousness. You know these people who say they can do good, they do good all their life, they'll get to heaven? That's the most extreme view of pride. They think they're so good, they qualify themselves to heaven. Nobody is good enough to get to heaven. We are all sinners. We need to turn from our sin, ask God for forgiveness, believe in the Son of God, that He died for our sins and rose from the dead, and change our life and follow Jesus.
Should Britain favour immigration from the Christian world?
Of course they should.
Why?
Because the Christians would bless this country. Do you know the most wonderful people who come to this country? They come from Africa, India, China, born-again Christians. Pray for this country. Bless the country. I've got many, many African Christian friends, the most wonderful Christians I've ever met. They truly love Jesus, they love the Bible, and they pray for this country in their churches every week. African Christians, wonderful servants of God, and they bless this country. It's wonderful.
Thanks,
My
Ken.
best friends come from Africa.
Thank
they
you,
love
man.
Jesus.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Ken. Let's go to
You
a break.
haven't put spaces in the numbers. Look at it. It's all confused. Looks like a barcode. Anyway, yeah, we got a little break.
So the number is 0344 499 1000. We'll be back in a mo with Mick from Wembley.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this is the Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Let's go straight to Mick in Wembley. Mick, you're on Talk.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to say about United, I'm a QPR fan. They need to, I think they need to, they're going to hate me saying this, but they need to rebuild. They were relegated to the old Division 2 in the 70s, I think. They need to,
I met a bloke called Andrew Ellis. Didn't he used to own QPR? I know he was a QPR fan. He used to own Glasgow Rangers or something. Anyway, is it true that at QPR you have your own name on the seat?
Yeah, of course you do. But basically you sit anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And if you're over 35, you can get the over 60s ticket if you're drunk.
It's a bit of a shabby stadium when I went a few years
But
ago.
hang on a second, so you can literally...
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's real shabby.
There's a seat with your name on it. I quite like that.
It's the only way they can sell the season tickets.
I sit anywhere, and at the end of the season, the players always kick me a ball, and I put it in a plastic bag, give it to my boy.
Really?
No, but it's,
you must have quite a few of them. Yeah.
But the school ends, they get balls every week. Well, what I was going to say, United, they're going to hate me saying this, but they'll be welcome at QPR. We're going to stick in the Championship for a while, but I think they're.
We can do Talk Sports just like better than they can even. Anything you wanted to talk TV related, like though?
Sorry.
Anything like not Talk Sport related? Because you're right on everything you've said.
Well, what do you want to talk about? I mean,
you did want to do Talk Sport? No, that's all right. No, carry on.
Well, Mr. Starmer's irreparably damaged his reputation. He's out.
Again, still on the sport thing.
Well,
no, we've switched now, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm getting confused. It's very schizophrenic, this. But anyway...
This Chagos Island deal, how bad do you think it is for Starmer?
Absolutely, totally stinks corruption.
I think it's a disaster. 30 billion to rent back your own property.
Yeah, it just stinks that somebody's putting a few bob in their pocket somewhere.
Well, yeah.
This is the amazing thing, isn't it? So that's not happened, but I maintain...
But there's a lot of lawyers making money.
But if Lammy wasn't a moron, we would genuinely believe that he was a Chinese spy because of the abject, inexplicable pro-Chinese behaviour.
Lammy is unfit to represent this country on the world stage.
I agree with that.
I hate to say that. He is completely unfit.
I know that, yeah.
But basically, anyway, Manchester United, I hope they go down till we get a game with them and they'll be welcome at Loftus Road, and we'll
back to Talk Sports. By the way, Adil Ray's been sacked from Good Morning Britain, so that's... or has he? Well, we checked. That's what the Daily Mail says. Good Morning Britain presenter Adil Ray is facing the axe from... I went to school... Oh, he's facing the axe. Well, we're all facing the axe, aren't we? Could go under a bus tomorrow. But, yeah, that's what the Daily Mail is saying. Good Morning Britain, Adil Ray's facing the axe from Breakfast Show amid ITV cuts and schedule. So they're all facing the axe. But Madeley, I like Madeley, he's all right, and Suzanne. He's a nice guy, actually. He used to work here, of course.
I like Richard Madeley.
So, yeah, Good Morning Britain, Adil Ray's facing the axe from popular Breakfast Show amid a schedule. Mick, what do you think of Adil Ray? Mick in Wembley, North London. Mick, Adil Ray, your thoughts?
Adil Ray, I never heard the name.
Exactly, so it's pointless anyway. Exactly, that's all you need to say.
Grace is in London. Grace, you're on Talk.
And Talk Sport.
Hi, I wanted to concur with the objection to the comment on Matthew 18:6, or alternatively, it's pretty much the same in Mark 9:42. I don't think that when Jesus says, "But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be thrown into the sea," I don't think Jesus is commenting on child sexual abuse. Frankly.
What was he talking about then?
He's talking about people causing children to sin, to turn away from God.
Oh, I see.
As you said, child abuse is not causing a child to sin. Child abuse is sinning against a child. So I don't think that this verse can be used in that way. There's plenty of other places in the Bible that make it very clear that God hates sexual sin and that God hates harm of vulnerable people, therefore God hates child abuse. And I completely concur with the idea about castration of child abusers. I've been thinking for ages, I don't know why they don't get on with doing that, so I'm glad...
Because as somebody pointed out, the Convention on Human Rights says that you can't give people forced medical treatment.
But I said forced medical treatment. I was sectioned from eating disorder and I was forced to eat food that I didn't want to eat. And I'm not thinking that was the wrong thing, but it was forced medical treatment.
Just out of interest, some people they can't do that to, and they end up young women dying from it. How were you able to be made to eat? And obviously you're doing all right now, presumably. Why is it some women they can't do it and they can't do anything?
Eating disorders are very complicated. There are a few people who I was in the eating disorders unit with who were physically pinned down and they had nail of the gastric choose.
Yeah, but you can't do it. I remember the Big Brother. She was a lovely woman, Nikki. They couldn't.
Who is she?
They couldn't do anything with her. And you know, there's Karen Carpenter, wasn't there? And there was Lena Zavaroni. There's sometimes they can't even. Can they pin them down and because that would be, you know, at least they'd survive.
Well, they can to some extent, but ultimately you may have a patient who's just going to keep on taking the tube out.
But you get human rights now as well, saying if they want to do that, that's their choice. And surely if you've been sectioned, you're not in your right mind. You shouldn't be allowed to just starve yourself. It's very, you know, it's very confusing.
The thing is that you can't really resolve the eating disorder by sectioning someone and making them eat. You can help keep them alive for a bit, but you can't really get rid of the...
I've got a friend of mine who worked in an eating disorder clinic, and she didn't tell the staff that she'd been admitted to the place. She'd been admitted to the place herself when she was a teenager, and she said, those girls really inspired me to lose weight. And she got sacked for being like the Hannibal Lecter.
But how did you get... presumably you're all right now, Grace, is that right? And how did that happen? How did it happen that you got cured from? Well, not cured.
No, I'm not cured. I'm not cured. I'm okay. I'm eating, but my eating is conditional on doing stupid amounts of exercise, and I'm bulimic. And I picked up the bulimia in the eating disorders unit.
Do you see yourself as overweight when you rationally know you're not? I mean, how does that... It's hard to understand if...
Not at the moment, but there's something in my brain that makes it impossible for me to cope with the idea of being a normal weight, and I feel completely compelled to exercise obsessively, which is ridiculous. It's probably partly connected to my Asperger's syndrome, which means that I have obsessive compulsive thoughts and patterns as well. But coming back to the original issue...
Yeah, sorry, I just got sidelined, but it's interesting anyway.
I think... I mean, I am very aware that I don't always do all of the things that I feel I ought to do. And sometimes that's because of my eating disorder or my obsessive thought, but sometimes that's because we are all sinful and flawed in various ways to very, very varying degrees. And some people have carried out crimes that are completely heinous that other people would never dream of doing. But I think in relation to the sentencing bill today, we sometimes like to think that some people are really, really evil and some people are fine, whereas actually we're all kind of on a spectrum, and sometimes people can really be reformed. So while obviously I do think that some people who are really dangerous do need to be behind bars, we have seen that some people, sometimes because they turn to God, or sometimes for other reasons, but particularly if they're aware of what they're doing being wrong, they can have a change of heart and they can be reformed. So it is good.
All right, Grace, can you talk to Ken about it? Can you have a little debate with Ken?
I think he'll probably out-debate me, but...
Well, let's find out. There's only one way to find out. Please say hallelujah and welcome Ken.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't get the young lady's name.
Grace, by the grace of God.
Grace, right. Grace, you're entitled to your opinions, Grace, and God bless you. However, after a young child is sexually abused, it's a known fact that due to the experience of the sexual harm they experienced, many of them turn to taking drugs, alcohol, becoming sexual abusers themselves due to the anger and the shame they experienced. Many children are led into a life of sin because they were sexually abused. This is a natural fact of life, sadly. So I understand the point you're trying to make, Grace, but it's a fact that when a person is sexually abused, their mind, their life is totally destroyed.
But that's not what Grace was saying.
By the way, can I also just say to the person that's messaged in, I hate to say this, but Mark 14:51 was not Jesus being arrested with a naked boy. Let's just be clear on that. The guy ran off and they grabbed his garment, and when he ran off, the garment departed his body. Right? It's not...
Tell that to the judge.
Right.
Sorry, Grace, you respond, eh?
Right. Well, I think for one thing, we shouldn't presume that all children who experience sexual abuse are going to go on to do those things that Ken has just listed.
Many children.
Yeah, but not necessarily all of them. And I also wouldn't say that having a substance abuse issue is necessarily the same as sin, especially if it's being brought about by trauma. But that's a whole debate in itself. But also, I think you're kind of implying that if a person... well, let's say a young person goes on to themselves be an abuser, you can't then say that sin of theirs has been caused by the person who abused them, because actually they're responsible for their own sin. They are, you know, a victim of some abuse, but they're still, if they are an abuser, they're still sinning. And we're all sinners.
That's a good point, Grace. That's a good point. However, the fact of the matter is a person's whole psyche, their whole mindset, their whole future for life is dramatically changed by the horrible attack of them sexually, and it affects them in so many ways. It destroys their life. I've heard many people testifying of how their lives were dramatically destroyed.
Normally, that is what happens. It destroys, their lives.
But Ken, I mean, I guess Grace's point is, if somebody is, you know, maybe 10 years old and behaves inappropriately with another kid because of the sexual abuse, that would not be a sin, would it?
Yes, as Grace said, we're responsible for our own sin. When we commit sin knowingly, we're responsible for it. It's very sad. This is a sad situation here. There's young kids being destroyed. And another thing which is, in my opinion, is neglected, is those who present these horrible, what I read about on these sexual videos, is harming children and putting them on the internet. These people should be arrested and jailed, every single one of them. And the people who view these evil deeds, they should also be jailed.
Correct.
We need to stamp down on this. The only way to do this is to bring judgment to the people.
Grace.
This is evil. This is outright
Grace,
evil.
you have the final word then.
Well, yeah, it is completely evil, and I am very disturbed because I'm quite aware of the things that he's referring to and how this is an escalating problem. I think to some extent it's a reflection. I heard one pastor say that because the human body is the apex of God's creation, sometimes when people stop worshipping God, they worship the human body and become perverts, and I think that's what we're seeing in some parts of our society. But I think that we need to keep in mind not just talking to people about the awful sin that there is in our world, as much as that's a big thing to talk about, but also we need to tell people that Jesus offers all of us the forgiveness that we all need.
But Grace, if we now know for a fact that uncontrolled immigration is causing people to be abused and abuse leads to further abuse, then surely we are willfully creating an epidemic by our uncontrolled immigration policies.
I'm not sure it's that simple. I mean, as Ken rightly said, quite a lot of the people who are coming over here are actually Christian, and I'm actually thrilled that some people are coming over and are slowing the decline of Christianity in this country. There are some people coming from Middle Eastern countries who are Christian. We've got loads of Iranians in our church. They're fantastic. So I don't think it's right to say that or imply that British people are inherently less sinful, because we're not. We all desperately need God, and the reason this country has become less Christian is not because of migration. It's because the native white population, fellow white Brits such as myself, many of us have decided to ignore God. So I think that the best thing might be to talk more about Jesus, who is a great role model for living a good life, and about how he offers us the salvation that we need, and that all of us can do things that are really wrong, but Jesus can help us.
OK, let me just read this out. I'll make this anonymous, even though we know who it was. For once, I agree with Ken. As a Catholic who was told regarding my abuser, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, which totally broke me. The scripture which Ken quoted gave me consolation that one day the man who abused me would get justice in death. More next.
across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, Steve is in Walsall. Steve, you're on Talk.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, morning.
Well, good morning, sorry.
Rise and shine.
Anyway, I'd just like to point out the thing about British Gas.
Yeah.
They have to take their care department for customers is an absolute disgrace.
Why? What happened?
I've had an ongoing problem now for 3 months and I still haven't got it resolved.
What's wrong with your gas?
I started off with an astronomical bill.
Yeah.
Then they told me that my smart meter wasn't any good. And I says, well, I was told it was the best thing since sliced bread. They said, oh, well, you've had it 10 years now. It's not working properly. I said, OK. I've had numerous appointments for the gas fitter to come to change the smart meters. And it's still carrying on. I'll keep ringing them back and saying to confirm the appointment. They say, oh, no, you haven't got an appointment. We'll make it another one. And this has been going on for 3 months. And you can't talk to anyone in authority.
No, I know, and also a lot of these. I don't know about British Gas, but I know I have a friend with EDF who said we need to come and have a look at your meter, and she said, oh, it's not a smart meter. They said no, and then the guy came, and he said, oh, I just need to get into your house, into your actual house, and she goes, well, what for? Is it a smart meter? And he goes, yes. And actually saying that it's not a smart meter, and because once it's in, that's it. You can't legally, you can't get it out. So they're trying to using all kinds of ways to get these smart meters in. And if I were you, don't have a smart meter.
They're not so smart as they're making out, believe me.
The stupid meters.
And if you want to ring the care people up, the British Gas, with all due respect to these people, you can't understand a word they're saying.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, because they're in India.
I've talked to a lot of people about this.
They're from Warsaw.
The amount of people that have said to me, we've dropped British Gas and gone somewhere else because...
Yeah, but a lot of them are all the same, you know what I mean?
The same on the road to losing a hell of a lot of customers.
Well, a lot of them play on the fact, oh, it's British Gas, it's the original, we better stick... And so there's a sort of premium, isn't there, on British Gas? It was like when British Telecom, there's sort of, you can charge extra just because of the name. Why don't you change over, Steve?
I am doing. I'm in the process tomorrow.
Nice one, because won't they sort it out? The next company will sort out all the problems with it.
Yes, they will. Because I'll tell you this, gentlemen. British Gas are a disgrace to the customers if that's the way they behave. And I'm not the only one.
Disgrace. I love the way we're pretending to talk about in general about something that's very specific.
Pardon?
You're pretending to talk in general about something that's very specific. You're going, British Gas are awful to their customers. Oh, they're dreadful. I've been waiting for 3 months to do this. So it is just you specifically have had an argument with British Gas.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, it's not only me, it's everybody else.
You can't even have an argument because you can't understand what they're saying. You can't even have an argument with them.
You cannot, if you're talking to them and you say, can I speak to somebody in authority?
You can't. It's AI now. I mean, even the BBC now, when you complain, it goes to AI online and you never get to a person. It's just all AI.
Yeah, all they do now, there's companies like Salesforce, and what they do is basically when you send in your message, so you've got your online discussion with them, it just comes up with a suggested response. So all that's happening is the operator just clicks yes or no.
And it's useless.
I mean, they've even said the one chap I was talking to who I could understand, but I put all my facts and all my problems to him, and he knocked £100 off my bill.
Is that all? I mean, that's probably not even a week's worth.
I'm not running a cannabis farm here.
And then you phone back a couple of days later and you've got someone, you've got to go and throw it all. You've got to go through it all again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's been going... every time I've rung up, I've had a problem. And I've said, can I speak to someone in authority? Oh, I will do it for you, I will do it for you. And I'm just going round in circles until tomorrow when I go, I'm fixing it up with another provider.
Steve, should we, just to change the subject, should we chemically castrate sex offenders?
Yes.
That's a good answer, simple answer.
Not only castrate them, cut the whole lot off, make them into eunuchs.
Now, and then they could join a choir. Like,
you old softy! You old softy!
Steve, let's get a Walsall update. What's going on in Walsall?
Well, I mean, it's just the usual, just the same. just the same.
Terrible, yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? The market used to be so great all the way up that hill, the market. Now it's just like...
Listen to this.
Yesterday, and they said they went down in the town and they were only too quick to get out because all the vagrants and beggars and...
Well, I saw even some migrants are now moaning about what's happening
Listen
in
to
Warsaw.
this. Somebody sent in, they said, tell the gas man to contact the Obdeism. I believe that's the Ombudsman.
But there was something else about Warsaw. I was shocked.
Yeah, what's that?
It said the immigrant and asylum seekers office.
Yeah.
I thought, what's all this about?
Yeah.
You know,
And what was it about?
people who want immigrants and asylum seekers, if they just walk into Warsaw and go in the office and get them.
Oh yeah, that's what happens, isn't it? But the people of Warsaw don't get anything. It's the same all over the country.
No,
We're third-class citizens in our own country.
Worked all my life and I'm paying sky-high rates to keep all these parasites.
How's the Arboretum?
That looks lovely, actually. They've got a big
They
fountain.
used to have the Warsaw Illuminations, which was like, it was really nice to go as a kid. Right?
But they cancelled that because of the cost. I mean, it was the Warsaw Illuminations. People used to come from all over the country to see that because it was a spectacle.
So the one thing you liked, and I liked it, the Warsaw Illuminations. I used to love it as a kid. You'd walk around the Arboretum, there's lights all flashing. Now that's all gone.
It's gone. Well, everything's gone, and let's face
Yeah. Probably got the migrant illuminations now, run by windmills.
All right, thank you so much, Steve. Cindy is in Michigan. Cindy, you're on talk.
Hi, Andre.
Hello.
Howdy doody.
Hi. Oh,
hi. Have a nice day, and you're welcome.
I want to say you guys are the highlight of my week. I
Thank
just
you.
love you guys so much.
Have a nice week.
You're welcome.
Also, I want to talk about chemically castrating pedophiles.
Yeah, go for it.
About time, but I need some rules. I want them not only castrated while they're inside prisons, how about while they're outside of
Well,
the
of course, they
prison?
have to be kept injected with the
You know,
stuff. Yeah, that's the whole point of it.
want some
Injected with a poison.
I want the UK to start taking this type of abuse and offenses more seriously.
Yeah, but apparently that doesn't work. And in your country, as Andre was saying, in California, they've got actual villages where you have to live for life because it's an incurable sexual proclivity. And even when you give them these chemicals, it doesn't stop some urges with a lot of these paedophiles.
I've heard that it can.
Yeah, well,
You
maybe.
know, I've heard other countries have successfully done this, and I feel you need to do all that you can because I don't think, especially the judges that you have right now, that give out these sentences where poor Lucy Connolly,
Yeah.
you know, for so long, outwriting sentences that have been given to, look at Hugh Edwards.
Yeah.
He walked away.
Yeah,
What
with
is
his big
that? You know,
bumper pension and paycheck from the BBC.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds a year.
Now, somebody's been in touch to say that we should chemically castrate paedophiles and also cut their hands off. I'll tell you something. Cindy. There's been a few softies getting in touch in this show. There's been a few bleeding-hearted liberals. Let me tell you something else. The people that have texted me in tonight, none of them, and I repeat, none of them, would be welcome on their local Lib Dem focus team anytime soon.
Oh, I bet. And also, I don't know if this is too personal on a different note, but Andre, I want to say something to you.
What?
You, I don't know, like, you look like you've lost weight and you're looking very healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of you.
Have you lost
I
over
wish
weight,
I
have
could
you?
do the
Lost- yeah,
same.
your jacket's
I'm
hanging up.
trying on this end, but hats off to you. You look really great.
Thanks so much. So what's going on in Michigan at the moment? Put your hands up for Detroit. We love this city.
I'm 3 hours away from Detroit, but I have ventured there for a few concerts, to see Echo and the Bunnymen and a few comedy
Echo
acts.
and the Bunnymen.
Yeah.
What did they sing? Remind me.
My mate used to manage Ian McCulloch.
Angels and Devils. They sing, what else? Sugar Lips. Remember Sugar Kisses?
Sugar Lips used to work on our show.
Sugar Kisses.
Echo and the Bunnymen. Let's have a look. What have they got?
Echo and the Bunnymen, yeah. They're a Liverpool band, aren't they?
Detroit's,
Ian McCulloch.
I believe so. Yeah, I know they're UK.
The Killing Moon, The Cutter, Lips Like Sugar, Bring on the Dancing Horses, and Seven Seas. Oh, obviously after the famous cod liver oil band.
Yes.
What other British bands do you like?
Brilliant band. Oh my God, the Smiths.
Yeah.
The Charlatans.
Yeah.
The Americans, they're talking about Gary Glitter. The Americans do like Gary Glitter because they don't realise.
Well, the thing is, Gary Glitter makes quite a lot of money in royalties because all your stadiums play his songs, don't they?
They do, and also it was in that movie, The Joker. Remember The Joker with Joaquin?
That's right.
Joaquin something or other. Yeah, it's a featured song.
Do they still play all Michael Jackson stuff? Of course, he was never convicted, was he? But do they still play? Is that music still played out there?
Oh, like crazy, yeah. But you know, the thing is, the way I personally feel is you have to learn to separate.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
The artist from
the only problem with Glitter is that Glitter is making money now off it, even though he's a pretty reprehensible individual. But I loved. Do you remember when Michael Jackson brought out the album Bad and Weird Al Yankovic